Yo, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Real Reviews with SOC, and we are going to spoil the living daylights at a Spider-Man No Way Home. So if you don't want to listen to spoilers, stay here anyway. Nah, but if you haven't watched the film yet, you can always come back and hear us review it and talk about it. But please put your comments in the comments section in the live chat, and of course, if you are watching this on the replay, make sure you put your comments in the comments section below. So with that said, as we usually do here at Real Reviews, we go ahead and we start with our general thoughts, and then we go right into all the spoilers and every little detailed scene. So I'll kind of start it off. For me, I truly enjoyed the living daylights out of this film. Everything from the score, from the effects, from the way he was swinging on the web, like everything to me was pretty much perfect. And that's just my opinion. I truly enjoyed it. I think everybody should go watch this film, especially if you're an MCU fan. I mean, if you're an MCU fan and you don't go watch this film, you're truly missing out on a treasure of a film. So those are my general thoughts. BK apologist. How about you, man?
Oh man, I also thoroughly enjoyed it. It's very big. It's a very epic movie, and it definitely ushers in a lot of interesting avenues for the MCU. I feel like we're going to get a tier system. We'll talk about that later because it is. And now it's all right, man. I loved it. Me and my wife, we haven't been to the movies in about 2 years because of this pandemic. So it was date night. It was great just on that alone. And the crowd was rocking. It was a thoroughly enjoyable experience. Good, great film.
Awesome. The Nate 2D2. General thoughts of the film, man.
So this was the sequel trilogy fan servicey kind of movie that we deserved from Disney. And I call it a trilogy because it is kind of a it's like basically three sequels in one. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, that you shouldn't be here. But it was so fun. And you know what, fan servicey like movies can go really bad sometimes. They did it right with this one, so I'm not gonna say it's a perfect movie, but we'll get into that, I'm sure. But it was, if some people got my expectations a little bit high just before, so I that's probably part of the problem. I was trying to keep my expectations low. I said I don't want any opinions, and then somebody decided to say, "Hey, you know what? I heard that's higher expectations than normal," and I'm like, "Okay, thank you." But I won't mention who said that. Okay. So I'll protect Detroit, but it was fun.
I'm feeling kind of attacked right now.
Oh, like that. Well, that was a great transition. Detroit, man, since you were attacked by the Nate 2D2, what were your general thoughts about the film, bro?
Okay, I'm gonna keep it sweet and simple. So I went on Reddit and looked at all of the spoilers. I watched a spoiler review the day before I went and watched the movie, and I've been tracking all of the leaks for a year now, and the movie blew my mind.
That's awesome.
It was awesome. It exceeded expectations in spite of all the anticipation, and that is very rare. So that was my experience.
All right. And Mrs. MJ Parker, what were your thoughts of the film, sis?
Well, I will repeat the sentiments of all the moviegoers in the theater I was in. Sony, go ahead and give Spider-Man to Marvel because I think they'll do a better service to it. I really enjoyed the movie because I am older than everybody. I started with the original Peter Parker, and then to see like my Peter Parker, and then my brother's Peter Parker, and then ZJ's Peter Parker, like all together, to me was amazing because you get to see kind of like the trajectory of all the Peters and like how they are in each stage of their life because they're all in different stages of their life. So I really enjoyed that part of it. I am glad that the original two Peters got to be MCU canon. Like that alone made me very happy. But Sony just needs to go ahead and give Spider-Man to Marvel because I just know they about to mess this up. But I'm glad we got some good ones before Sony jacked this up.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. So I have, on a rare occasion, I have no slides. We're going to spoil it in every single direction. I figured that was the best way to do it instead of the structure. Just everybody just go crazy. And especially you guys in the chat. Make sure you guys tell me what you thought of the film if you watched the film. Okay. So I'm going to spoil the end first. I want to say that I was extremely pleasantly surprised at how they led. And this is one of my favorite parts of the film, how they led into his original costume. I thought that was awesome, the way they did that, because everybody's been complaining, oh, Tony Stark gave him the outfit, or this. He didn't do it like the original Peter Parker, where he kind of made his own outfit, fabricated it. And this is something that I really enjoyed in the other Spider-Man films, was that he had that original outfit that they fabricated. Of course, we know that he had, of course, the original hoodie, the blue hoodie with the red sweats, but it wasn't really kind of shown too much. But when they went to the classic blue and red outfit from the comics, I was totally like with it. I was like, that's the way, not only to end the previous three, but to begin the new next three. From what I heard is he's going to do another trilogy. And this is cool because now we get the Peter Parker like in college. And so I can't wait to see what villains he fights. But you know, that's for me. That's for me. You guys, just talk, just go for it, guys. Any parts of the film that stood out to you?
Yeah, I mean, it's a reboot. It's a definite reboot. Like we're gonna get the Golden Age Spider-Man, right? Because the Golden Age Spider-Man, he lived in the city. You know, he lived in the rinky-dink apartment, trying to make ends meet. You know, he'll probably end up working for the Bugle, right?
Right.
And it's like it's classic Spider-Man. It's Spider-Man that a lot of us older people grew up with. We're gonna get that now. So it was the ending of a trilogy and a reboot, and kind of a soft reboot to the whole MCU as well, because of people forgetting who he is. Like there will be ramifications for that in other films because of this. So yeah, I mean, I was shocked. It's like, man, that, you know, the neon blue. I forgot what shade of blue that is.
Yeah,
and
it was
him,
like a neon
Royal
baby
blue.
or something.
royal blue,
Yep.
and him
That's
swinging through
the color
Rockefeller
that I
Center.
have my eyebrows to as a
It's an
nod to
homage.
his.
It's an homage
Yep.
to
I
the
like it. I like it.
right. So him swinging through Rockefeller Center in Christmas time, which, by the way, nice. I really like that. Which, by the way, is a nice little segue into the whole Hawkeye series, right? Because this is happening during that same time frame, right? So, I mean, you know, so I thought that was pretty dope too. So yeah,
And Daredevil's in it.
Yeah.
Right.
I loved just getting like kind of chronologically for me. I loved how real world they made it, where with the revelation of Peter Parker being Spider-Man, how the girl tries to rip his mask off, like take your mask off, and like how you know how crazy Americans are today. That's what it made me think of, and I was like, that's very realistic. So yeah, it came out the gate with a very, even though I saw that in the trailers, seeing it all sequentially take place, and then the pacing of it, I thought the pacing of it was well, because it got from that scene to the next scene of them getting back to his apartment pretty quickly. So yeah, I thought it just opened up fast paced, jumped right into it, and really gave you this exciting feeling to it.
Yeah, when it came to the pacing, like for me, one of the things that I love, I'm glad you brought that up, because you know, what a film this big with this many characters, it can feel like it has a lot of ups and downs, like high action and then like nothing and just kind of boring. So it risks having that, you know, ebb and flow. But this one, I think they did a great job with time management. I mean, they could have pushed it to maybe 2 hours and 45 minutes, but it wasn't necessary. They kept it at the exact, I think it was 2 hours total, 18 minutes without credits and after credit scenes, or 2 hours and 16 minutes total. But I think they did an excellent job with the pace. I think there was just enough action, and the action to me was extremely meaningful. It wasn't action for action's sake. It wasn't, you know, it just wasn't random. I felt like, and even though I loved Endgame, I just kind of felt like the pace was off a bit on Endgame. Endgame was great, but the pace was just like, it didn't feel like the action was, certain action scenes were like needed at that time in the moment in the film. But I felt like with this one, they kind of corrected that and told the story. And when the action was needed, that's when they brought it in. So I'm glad you brought that up too, because pacing was awesome in this film. Yeah, what else, man? What else do you guys? Because I will talk.
I am very glad about seeing 4 of the 6 Sinister Six. I wish all 6 of them was in the movie,
Uh-huh.
but well, 3 was in there and 1 was in the previous one. But I was excited to see 3 of the Sinister Six together. I was like, I really was hoping for all 5 because I was like, Mysterio, we already know he's out. So I would like to see the other 5 of the Sinister Six. So they gave us some of them, which I knew the ones we were going to get because of the movie, but that just really made me happy because I actually like the Sinister Six. If y'all don't know, I prefer the villains. But Spider-Man is a classic, and I love Spider-Man. All of them, hence the black for Miles, because you can't forget about Miles, and he did get a small shout out in the movie, so I really appreciated that part of it. But I hope in the new trilogy that we get all 6 of the Sinister Six. I mean, granted, there's redemption in there, but there might be some new ones coming out. Who knows? I just want to see all 6 of them.
Awesome. Like, okay, so since we transitioned right into the Miles Morales, I love it. So number one, I like the fact that it was Jamie Foxx that got to hint at it. I thought that was dope that it was him over every other character. I thought it was really cool. But okay, so Miles Morales, how do you think he's going to enter the MCU? Like, where do you think they're going to fit him in? Because they're not going to make that reference and not bring him in. I think they have to now. They set everybody's expectations to bring him in. How do you guys think they're going to bring him into the whole thing?
Well, we have the Spider-Verse and the multiverse. Mm-hmm. So that's how you bring them all together, because we've seen how the multiverse is now a thing and how it opened up in Spider-Man. So we have a way to bring, and we see how all the other 2 Spider-Mans came with, Tom Holland Spider-Man. We see how all that happens. So there's a way for Miles to come in here because we have this opening now of how this can happen.
Right. Also, I think we now see that the cartoons in the MCU are connected to the real life MCU.
Yep.
Right. Like with What If, right? We saw, the evil Doctor Strange now. Like that's from What If. So I'm thinking with the new Enter the Spider-Verse, I think that might be a way of them bringing him into the live action, because I believe that because it was funny, right? Because they made they saw Jamie Foxx, the new Electro. They saw that, you look a little different. There's no comb over. There's no,
right.
This is a much more swagged out Electro. And when he was talking to Garfield Spider-Man, right, he was saying that, man, I thought, you had all this swag, you was helping poor people. I thought you was black, right? So my theory is that Electro isn't Garfield's Electro. That's Miles' Electro. That's what I'm thinking. Because Garfield.
Oh, that's a good one.
You know what I mean? Because Garfield doesn't have swag like that. I love Garfield's Spider-Man interpretation.
But they had that dialogue. They had that dialogue when they were trying to get Electro, and Amazing was talking to him like it was his Electro.
Right.
Because I thought the same thing
like
as you.
His Electro. Right. But I don't think that is his Electro, because again, and they pointed out in the film, man, you look a little different here, because that's not the same Electro. And again, in his mind, he's like, even though he's never seen him without the mask, he's like swagged out, because Miles got the J's on, got the hood, you know what I mean? So it's like, I thought you was black, So I'm thinking that's Miles' Electro, to be honest with you. So,
but he got a body again, right? Like he was saying, like this is like I'm physical again. So my original thought was that, he when he got, like, I guess, I don't know, recorporealized or whatever, that maybe it got kind of he got a makeover, just, I don't know, because that's the way he wanted to look or something. Or, obviously it's like an easy way, so he was easy way out, so he doesn't have to look ugly. Because I'm sure a lot of people wanted to just look at pretty Jamie Foxx. But it's interesting that, I mean, because all of them were brought into into that universe, into that universe, because they knew Peter Parker, right? That was the thing. Right. So that was kind of like, well, I was trying to remember, okay, did he know Peter Parker? And I was just kind of, I dismissed it. And I was like, Harry Osborn must have told him or something at some point. But I don't think that's the case, right? Like, Harry only figured out during the battle who Peter was in Amazing Spider-Man 2. And and he was surprised at what Andrew Garfield looked like, right? Like he didn't know. So how did he get pulled in? Did he know by name that Spider-Man was Peter Parker, or
He might have heard the name.
or what's the deal there?
Might have heard the name, but also Electro doesn't act like this. Jimmy Foxx doesn't act like Garfield's Electro either.
Right.
Doesn't act like him at all. It's a totally different character. That's why, even though
I
he
think
looks
that too.
similar, and this is for my man Jimmy U in the chat. What up, Jimmy? But even though he looks like Garfield's one, the Amazing Spider-Man version of Electro, it's a different Electro though, because he looks different, and more importantly, he acts totally different. He's cool now. This guy was a dweeb.
Yeah, he was much more self-aware and self-confident than the Electro Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Right.
So now, okay, let me play devil's advocate. So let's just say that is the same Electro. If that is the same Electro, I think they should have they would have, or they should have explained why all of a sudden he looks different, and they didn't, because when I think it was Lizard who said, "Man, you look completely different. You had a comb over, you had this, you had that," and that to me would have been a perfect option. He said, "Did you just go get a makeover?" And it's like, well, how would he have got, unless he didn't die and just came back to life? Because he did mention, when I was, I got defeated by this guy I was lost in, and I was learning and kind of absorbing information and where the main grid where he fought, I think the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man. I mean, that would have had to be there would have to had not only some time, unless they're just alluding to the past, that there was time that had passed before he got sucked in after his fight with Andrew Garfield. That would be the only explanation. And then he went and got a makeover. But he did not acknowledge it. He did not acknowledge that, oh, yes, that's what I did. He just
We don't actually know what he looks like, though, right? After he becomes Electro in Amazing Spider-Man 2, because from what I recall, because he's all blue, right? He's all like Dr. Manhattan or whatever. But so if I correct me if I'm wrong, but when he becomes Electro, his teeth actually kind of come together,
That's
like
true.
the gap goes away, right?
Yeah.
Good point.
So
Good point.
I don't know. I just
He
feel
got
like
swagged out even then. We just didn't realize.
yeah,
But-
yeah.
but-
And he didn't
It just
deny
feels
the
like it
combo.
should be.
But that
That's
was
a good point.
But he didn't deny
that
the
wouldn't
comb over
explain the
either.
comb over versus the afro though.
Maybe he's
to me,
not
that-
bald anymore because he
that's-
fixed his teeth.
That's
Maybe
the biggest distinction.
The electricity.
Because he was bald. He was bald as Electro. Yeah, no hair.
Yeah,
Right,
but he
right.
didn't deny the
Electricity
comb over.
stimulated the follicles, and you just couldn't tell because he was blue.
Right,
So-
right. Now I
could
know
be
that
it. That could
I
be
know
it.
a lot of people did. Now this is going to be I'm going to go against probably the majority of people here. But when I rewatched The Amazing Spider-Man 2, I found a brand new love for that Spider-Man. Like, to me, he's my favorite Spider-Man. Now everybody might, agree, disagree. That's fine. But for me, Andrew Garfield was the pinnacle of, at least for me, my favorite Spider-Man. Now, that may change when Tom Holland does this new trilogy, because I think for the story that Tom Holland did, he was playing a very inexperienced, very young, boyish, kind of like cat that didn't really know what he was doing. And he did that great. But I think now we saw his acting chops in this film. That's one thing that really kind of stood out for me, was Tom Holland did a lot of really good acting in this film. And I think now that he's going to have the opportunity to play a more mature Spider-Man, he may become, the pinnacle of what Peter Parker's supposed to be. But anyway,
Let me push back on you. Let me push
go
back on
for
you
it.
on that one.
all right.
I liked it. My only issue with his take was it was more geek than nerd.
Who?
Andrew Garfield's take on Spider-Man.
More geek
Because
than
Peter
nerd?
Parker
Okay.
is a nerd. He's not really a dweeb / geek. There's a
I
difference.
thought that was I thought Tobey did that. I think Andrew
Tobey was
more of
definitely
a
nerd.
Oh yeah, I think
He nailed
Andrew
it.
was more of the cool emo Spider-Man.
I don't say cool. He was definitely emo, but he was more geek than nerd.
You
Though
think
he was
so?
smart, but I felt like he was a little too awkward. I mean, nerds are awkward, but he was geeky. You know what I mean? And Peter, I don't think is geek. He's more of a nerd in my opinion. So
Okay. So let's transition, because this is perfect. So I say my favorite Peter Parker, hands down, to me, is Andrew's Peter Parker, and Spider-Man. So I'm just gonna take overall, he was my favorite one. But BK, who was your favorite of all the Peter Parkers they've shown so far?
it's hard. I like Tobey because he brought it back.
Mm-hmm.
Right, he brought it back to us, and I felt like he did a really spot on thing.
Mm-hmm.
But Tom Holland, to me, is more of an age appropriate Spider-Man.
Okay.
Because even when Tobey came on to do it, I felt like Tobey was already too old. Mary Jane was definitely too old for that one. The one who played Mary Jane, she was way too old. Like that was bad casting. But I think Tom Holland did a just as amazing job, but he was more age appropriate.
Right.
So I'm it's a tie between Tobey and Tom Holland for me.
Oh. All right, Nate 2D2, go for it, man. Your favorite Spider-Man so far that they've shown, not including comics, just on the MCU in general.
Yeah. So that's always kind of hard for me to pick favorites. It's like asking me who my favorite Bond is or who my favorite Doctor from Doctor Who is. But I think I'm going to have to sort of agree with SOC on this one. After having rewatched all the Spider-Man movies, I love all of them. I think they did a great job, and seeing them in this movie all together was great again. Like seeing the old ones come back was great again. But rewatching, so I actually kind of hated Amazing Spider-Man 2 the first time I watched it in theaters. I was just like, ugh. And then when they didn't continue with it, I'm like, good, because I mean, I liked the first one. I like Amazing Spider-Man 1. Right. And then, it wasn't perfect, but I liked it. I liked kind of the darker tone. I kind of liked what they were maybe, hinting at with the parents and stuff like that. And then, it's Amazing Spider-Man 2, and I'm just like, oh, Sony's just messing this up again. It's just, we're already in just like Spider-Man 3 in 2, where there's like too many villains and stuff like that, right? They're already jumping the gun, because that's what we got with Spider-Man 3, Tobey Maguire. But watching them together, Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2, and knowing already that I was expecting the story to not like the story, because I already didn't like the story from Amazing Spider-Man 2. I think I was able to focus more on Andrew Garfield's journey as Spider-Man, and I think that's what I enjoyed. Just his journey in becoming Spider-Man, trying to figure out who he is, dealing with the burden of being Spider-Man, and I really liked, especially when he was Spider-Man, like when he put the costume on, I found myself really enjoying, the way he did the quips, because I think that you get a little bit more of that with Andrew Garfield Spider-Man than you did with Tobey Maguire. I mean, you still get it, but I think that was one of the things I remember seeing in the trailers leading before Amazing Spider-Man 1 came out. It's like, oh, this is more of the jokey Spider-Man, kind of like what I remember from the 90s cartoon, and so that's one aspect that I liked. And seeing Andrew Garfield again in this movie, in No Way Home, I just appreciated his take on Peter Parker, and the way the way he brings a certain kind of emotion and weight to the character, which all of them do. All of them kind of bring that the whole, you feel the weight of the responsibility of being Spider-Man. All of them do that really well, and it's amazing to see kind of different aspects of that with the different Spider-Men in this movie. Andrew Garfield, I think, is really good at showing a certain kind of emotion, and I like that part when he was able to save MJ, kind of redeem himself in this movie. You know what? The only thing I would wish about that was that I kind of wish that when she saved her, that she could have been like, and this is just me, I don't know, maybe this is crazy, but I wish she kind of looked at him and it was like, thank you, Peter. Like it, it's you know what I mean? That would I don't know. I feel like that would have been good. Like you just looked at him, and because everyone knows the moment, right? Everyone knows it's that same thing. Things are going sideways. Though she's kind of sideways, like her angle is different, right? So it's like it's gonna go sideways, like to what happened last time. So that was a great beat. And so I'm really glad that they brought. I'm sorry, I'm going along, but I'm really glad that they brought Andrew Garfield and obviously Tobey Maguire in this because they brought the whole part about like I just feel really lame. Like no, you're amazing, and it was just funny to me because I'm like that's good because it's like they just make reference to it, right? Like they're just like everyone, because it's like okay, this he only got 2 movies, right? It's like so you feel bad for him, but
he's a reject Spider-Man.
Yeah, he's a reject Spider-Man. But he actually was amazing, just to as Spider-Man, himself. I think Sony messed up or whoever messed up. Maybe there was too many notes. Like, oh, we got to bring in all these. You got to bring in 2 villains. You didn't need 2 villains in that one, I think, and I didn't even like Harry in that one. But him himself, he was really good, and I'm almost disappointed now looking back on it. I have mixed feelings. I'm almost disappointed that they didn't continue on just to see what they could have done with Andrew Garfield's journey. But at the same time, I am glad that they kind of canceled it, because then we got, I think it's only 2 years later or something that we get the Tom Holland Spider-Man. So having him part of the MCU and having them really like all of them part of the MCU now, that's just amazing. So, but yeah, I think Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man, not necessarily his films, his first one maybe, but Andrew Garfield is probably right now my favorite Spider-Man, because I think Andrew Garfield is actually really talented and probably underrated as that role.
Yeah. So like real quick, just to kind of jump off on that one. One of the things, like, I think I got swept away in all the bad talk of Spider-Man, the Amazing Spider-Man 2, because as I was watching it without having all the, I guess all that, oh, it sucks, oh, it's horrible, oh, this, without having all of that, I actually genuinely really liked those two movies, both of them. I liked that they were putting a little twist on, Peter Parker's origin and how he has the DNA, and that's why nobody else can get bit by a spider. I like that there was a little thing about his father in the background. I think they could have done better with introducing the villains, but I did like that they were trying to bring in the Sinister Six in that way, but they were changing not only, I think what messed it up was they changed the origin of the Sinister Six, and that's too many characters to change when you're already kind of changing, how Spider-Man and his dad and all that happened. I think because they changed the origin of these villains, it kind of really tweaked it too much. But Chris.
That's good. Like, I'm not really like hardcore on my favorite Spider-Man. I'm a Tobey Maguire. To me, like, he is where my love for the movies came from. Like, prior to that, I had seen a little live action Spider-Man back in the 80s. And,
I remember that.
Right. So, I've seen a little bit. So yeah, he was the one that like just rekindled that. Oh, wait a minute, they can do this kind of a thing,
Right.
So yeah, I got kind of a nostalgia for Tobey Maguire, and then I liked how in this movie they played off of that. Like, hey, he's the mature, he's the most experienced, he's the mature. So yeah, I kind of like his. As far as the Amazing Spider-Man go, I got the shirt on. Like, I really felt like they failed with it wasn't necessarily an Andrew Garfield problem as much as it was the overall stories that they told, or the way they told the stories. I think they were overly ambitious, and the way that they introduced and paced things was just a little bit unrealistic. It was just like bop, 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 one after another. So like, like at the end when they're introducing Rhino and what was that? Rhino, right? It was Rhino assignment. Like, it's terrible. And then and to ruin like it with Paul Giamatti is a really good actor.
Yeah.
And that's what y'all come up with. That's kind of it. So yeah, my favorite Spider-Man is Tobey. Although Holland, particularly, with the way his arc ended with his maturity, that was beautiful to see. So like he certainly climbed a few notches, but yeah, I don't have much separation between the three as it is. So.
Okay. Awesome. Mrs. MJ Parker, who's your favorite Spider-Man?
I'm gonna say Tobey only because that, like Chris, like that was my introduction to good Spider-Man movies.
Yeah.
So I think it would be my favorite Peter Parker. My favorite Spider-Man is Miles, of course, but my favorite Peter Parker would definitely be Tobey. But I grew BK. Tom is much more age appropriate than the other two was, but I think. So I seen The Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2 like opening night. So I didn't have any people saying, oh, I don't like it. I actually liked both of them. Like when they first came out, I had no problems with either one of them. I was very disappointed that he didn't get a continuation of his story, because I think done right, a continuation of his story would have landed him up there with Tobey and Tom because of how they could have taken it. That's why everybody's like, Sony, please just give Marvel Spider-Man, because you messed up Amazing Spider-Man. Like, they did great with Tobey. They didn't do great with Amazing Spider-Man. And this Spider-Man has only been great because Marvel's influence in the movies. And because of that, I think if Andrew Garfield, honestly, because he is a better actor, if he was in the MCU, I think his Spider-Man would have been the top out of all three of them because he is a better actor. And I think all three are great actors. He's a better actor. He has a better range of emotion. When Ned opened the portal with the sling ring, y'all, I was like, oh my God, Ned! And I was so excited for Ned because I think Ned would be great in the MCU as well, just because of how he's already been part of Spider-Man's life. And to see him have that power was really amazing because everybody can't operate sling rings like that. You see how Doctor Strange struggled in the beginning, and Ned was like, "Oh, look, you guys, I opened it." And Strange was like, "You did what?" And the cape saved Ned. I'm sorry, I'm going all over the place, but I was so happy when the cape. I was like, "Oh my God, he saved! Oh my goodness, Ned, you got the power." So to take him out of that was disappointing to me. To take Ned just like Ned would be perfect. Like, well, we could train Ned. And BK, I have to say this. I said BK, Strange is not the Sorcerer Supreme. They never said he's the Sorcerer Supreme. I was right, BK. I was right. In your face, BK. Wong is the Sorcerer Supreme. In your face, BK. I said it. I said nobody said he was the Sorcerer Supreme. BK's like, he is. I said, no, BK. Nobody said it. I was right. I just need BK to
MJ Parker, I admit it. You was right.
That's all I want to hear. But my favorite Peter Parker. Go ahead.
Go ahead. I was gonna say that I really feel like it's unfair for us to say that that Tom Holland wasn't as good of an actor as Andrew Garfield, because I felt like Tom Holland acting as a little kid came off quite well, like acting immature. Like, I mean, like I thought he pulled that off quite well. He seemed very much like a little kid, and then I also felt like at the end of the movie when the anger and that he displayed felt real. Like it really felt like he was losing it and he was mad and he wanted to, hey, I'm not here to heal you. I'm here to kill you. You know, he was definitely
healing nonsense.
But I think he was definitely sold that.
So that scene.
But I still think Andrew is a better actor overall. Like again, when Ned opened it, I knew that was Andrew Garfield. Because A, he's taller than the rest of them. B, I know his costume. And as soon as they opened, I said, that's not their Peter. That is Andrew. That is amazing Spider-Man. But I think just overall, I think Andrew would have been better in the MCU because I think he is a better actor. Not saying that the other two are great actors in their own right. Tobey Maguire, I think, is a fantastic actor. Tom Holland, to see him develop as an actor is amazing. I just think Andrew Garfield still takes the win for me.
I think Andrew did an audition in this film for being the new Marvel Spider-Man because though I didn't care for his take on it in his Spider-Man movies, this one though he acted his butt off in this one. Yeah, like he came through like blazing. You know what I mean? And what I also liked about his take of Spider-Man now is the desperation of having a former family, because all three of them have had tragedies with their family, but no one wore it as much as Andrew Spider-Man. Like for these guys, it happened and they kind of moved on. You know, Tobey Spider-Man, he never really moved on. It was always constantly in him. So when he saw two other Spider guys, is like, in a lot of ways, he finally had the family that he always wanted. So I thought that was pretty cool too.
Okay, so since Michelle brought up the whole him bringing them in, so I want to talk about audience reactions because all of us saw it in the theater. So I want to know everybody's experience. I'll start with mine, and then we can just go crazy. So the second that your boy, my man, Andrew, turned around and you saw the big spider eye, everybody lit up they were like, wow! The whole theater erupted because I didn't think it was going to happen in that scene. I thought, it was going to be. But once that portal opened up, and it's like Peter, and he looked, and then he turned around. I was like, oh, everybody was clapping and screaming in the theater. And of course, when Tobey showed up, I told Michelle, my favorite is Andrew, but I said the second this boy show up, Tobey's, everybody, that eruption when Tobey showed up was insane, man. I don't know. Tell me what happened in the theater with you guys, because that was the craziest part of the whole movie. BK, go for it, man.
Yeah, no, I mean, people were going crazy when they saw Andrew. When Tobey showed up, I had these three dudes sitting in front of me, and they're like, the OG's in the building. They were ecstatic. Because for a lot of us, we grew up with Tobey, right? So to see him and not only that, but the scene where where Andrew saves MJ,
Oh,
like I can't front, I teared a little bit at that scene. Like that was super emotional because, well, we'll talk about it more later on, but all these guys got some sort of closure in this film as well. I'm gonna talk about that later, but that scene, everybody was like, oh, and it was like a delayed reaction for the audience because they thought she was gonna die. Here comes Andrew, and I think people knew that. But once he saved it, then he brought it down, and then he asked if she's okay, and while he was asking that's when he started crying. Then she asked, "Are you okay?" That's when the audience was like, "Oh, that's right."
Yeah,
So good.
That was a beautiful scene. And here's the thing: like everybody in the theater, well, not in the theater, everybody in the spoiler world, right? Because I was able to manage staying away from everybody, but everybody was pretty much saying that Andrew was going to be the one to catch her. And I thought they CGI'd the hand differently, just so that way we could think it's Tom Holland Spider-Man. So when he went to go catch her and he got hit by Green Goblin, I'm like, yo, is she? It was like that moment of, yo, did they just? And then Andrew came. I was like, I knew it. But they, even with knowing that Andrew was going to catch her, they still were able to pull that off to where, okay, it's his hand, and then knocked him out the way. And I'm like, oh man, don't tell me they're gonna. And then your boy jumped. I was like, oh, whew, that was good. But definitely. So Nate, say, what was your audience like when you were watching the film, man? When did they erupt on those scenes?
So I watched it Friday morning. So I think the theater wasn't exactly packed, but it was still for I mean it's still Friday, so it was still a lot more packed than it would normally be, I think, for other films. And so it didn't even occur to me to think that was one of the other Spider-Men when Ned opened the portal.
Hold on, real quick.
I just
Calm.
Oh, yeah.
You should have just told me, sis. I didn't know you guys wanted to come on. I would have had you up here quick and in a hurry. And if you still want it, you could go ahead and let me know, and I'll send you the link right now. Well, go ahead, Nate. I'm sorry.
I think she means to the movie, right?
Oh, okay. I thought she meant on the stream. If that's what you meant, my bad. But go ahead, Nate.
But yeah. So when he opened the thing, I was just thinking, oh, they found Peter, or Tom Holland Peter. And then I didn't notice the big eyes, but I guess everyone else did, because I kind of heard some gasps, kind of like, oh, and so that's when it occurred to me. It's like, oh, they know. I didn't realize how they knew either. Now that you mentioned that they saw the big eyes, I'm like, oh, okay, that makes sense. That's how they know. I just assumed some people kind of figured it out. So then he comes in, right? And so I was like, okay, oh, is it him? Is it one of the other ones? So I started getting excited because I was, you kind of like, I wasn't sure. I know it was kind of leaked, but I that we're gonna have other Spider-Man, but I don't think it was ever confirmed. And I tried to stay away from trailers and everything as possible. And I tried not to expect them to be there, but hoped that they would. So when that came in, he came in, and that he pulls off the mask. Yeah, everyone was happy. I don't think it was as loud as it probably was in your theaters. But it was still a great moment just to see it, because it's like you kind of knew it was going to happen, but to actually see the moment that they bring in, I was just like, I just thinking, I was like, man, like you would not have expected this. How many years ago that they could pull this off? I mean, this is years in the making, right? I mean, I was just like, good job, Kevin Feige, for the way he's done everything, and good job on Sony for working with Marvel, pulling this off, bringing in the Sony Spider-Man. I mean, they're all Sony Spider-Mans, but the Sony only Spider-Mans into this, and actually having a movie where it's almost like one of those things where you would say like, it would be a good idea, but that if they tried to do it, it wouldn't work. Right. And it wouldn't, except that the fact that we've had all these films, all the Spider-Man films and all the MCU films, given, Tom Holland's film enough time to build up to this, so that worked. And then of course you had of course, when they say, okay, try again. So Ned goes like this, what's going to happen at that point, right? So for me, I felt like the tension was a little bit less. I mean, you hope it's going to be Tobey, right? But I think when he came in, there was cheers. I'm trying to remember. I don't think it was like as loud as you would expect, because I almost feel like people were expecting it. But I could just be remembering it wrong, because I don't know, because I was thinking, okay, this is after the surprise with Andrew, it's you can't really surprise with Tobey, I think, anymore. But it was still a good moment just to see him. And man, he looked old. I was just like, man, Peter Parker looks a little bit old. He looked tired too. I haven't seen Tobey Maguire in a while. Sorry if you're watching this, Tobey. I mean, you look old, but,
I think he's gonna be watching.
yeah. But it was still good to see them, and he has that Tobey Maguire has that kind of, I don't even know, optimistic face. That he brings, and it was so nice to see him again. And I think up to that point, I was sort of kind of like feeling like I liked the movie in the beginning, and then I was like, okay, this is not necessarily like the best. Like it was still fun seeing everyone, like all the villains from the different universes and stuff like that, and then they were doing a good job. But I think once they came in, I was just like, man, I don't care like if the story isn't perfect, like this is just fun. And so that moment was great. And it's like you couldn't do any more wrong after that, because you had all the Spider-Mans together, and I think everyone was enjoying that.
Awesome.
What
Chris,
they call Tobey a teen pastor?
The cool team.
A middle-aged youth pastor. Yeah, he said, "Oh, you're gonna keep your middle-aged youth pastor on." He said, "Yeah."
Isn't Andrew Garfield? Is he a Christian of some sort, or like I thought he might have some kind of faith? So I thought that would have been interesting.
Not that I know.
No. Okay, I don't know. Maybe he's just the roles that he played.
Chris, what was the reaction?
He's pro the alphabet. I know that much, because he was begging for his.
I like how you said that.
He was begging. Nice. He was begging for his character to be different.
Right. So. Chris, what was the that's awesome. What was the reaction in the theater? How was the atmosphere?
Okay. Like I went on Thursday at 4 p.m. and not an empty seat. And well, actually, there were 2 empty seats because
all the way in the front.
Because
right?
I bought extra tickets. No, they're right next to me. Because a friend of mine caught COVID and wasn't able to come, so I returned the seats at the last minute, and they were sitting right next to me. But other than that, the entire theater was full at 4 p.m., which is like still during like kind of like business hours, and it was like a loud roar when I noticed it and saw the hype. That was what tipped me off when the portal opened up. And of course, I heard spoilers. I didn't know this was the moment. I just heard that the spoiler that they were in it. And so when I saw the portal open up and I saw this tall looking Spider-Man, I'm like, Tom Holland, short. That's not Tom Holland.
Right.
And so, yeah, that's how I caught it. But yeah, it was like almost instantly everybody figured it out and just roar in the auditorium. So it was awesome.
Awesome. Michelle, what the audience reactions in your theater? Because you went on Friday, like the peak.
Yeah,
time.
I went at 7 p.m. on Friday.
How was it?
Well, ours was sold out. But so I don't like sitting next to people in movie theaters. So like ours, we have like you get if somebody is like in a wheelchair, they get like a companion seat. So I always purchase next to the companion seat, because if you don't get a wheelchair ticket, you can't buy the companion seat. So nobody was sitting next to me, so I get sat in the companion seat. So there's space between me and the person, and that's terrible. But I do that every time, y'all. That's a good trick. First, I want to say Aunt May gets younger and younger every Spider-Man. The next reboot, Aunt May and Spider-Man gonna be the same age. But I will say when everybody knew it was Andrew, because one guy was like, "Oh my God, it's Amazing Spider-Man!" Everybody like, "Oh my God!" They just went crazy. But again, I don't know if maybe. I think because a lot of people haven't been to the movies since the pandemic. The first time I actually went to movies, I went to see Shang-Chi and Candyman at the same time. So that was like, this is only my second time since the pandemic. Most people, this is their first time. So everybody was just going crazy. Doc Ock came out. They're like, "Oh my God, Doc Ock!" Green Goblin, his bomb came. They're like, "Oh my God, Green Goblin!" They went crazy over everybody. So they were just excited to be at the movies at this point. Everybody came out. But I will say, when Andrew came out and then when Tobey came out, Like it was louder, but they was cheering for everybody. Doc Ock, Jamie Foxx, Electro. Like as soon as they seen electricity, they're like, "Oh my God, it's Electro!" They went crazy. Like everybody who came out, like Doctor Strange, when they first opened the door and Doctor Strange, they're like, "It's Doctor Strange!" I'm like, y'all, y'all. But I mean, but that makes it more exciting because the audience is like interacting with the movie, like they're not being obnoxious, but they're so happy to see these characters that we have grown to love over the years, and you haven't really seen them because of the pandemic. So you get to see all of them together. Like when I said that Strange wasn't the Sorcerer Supreme, and Wong was like, "I'm the Sorcerer Supreme." Everybody's like, "Oh my God, how?" Like they were just they were just interacting with literally everything. So I just think people were excited just to be in the movie theater. But I really enjoyed being in the audience. Like they were clapping for everything, but it makes the movie experience fun because my favorite movie experience, even to this day, is Endgame. And I think it's because of how excited everybody was. And it's powerful. You know, you could feel it. Like you feel it in the air. And you felt it last night too. So I think that made the movie experience even better because you could feel everybody's excitement and happiness and cheeriness and being in the theater.
Yeah, definitely.
Man, I was expecting that drum roll when you said "in the air."
I can feel it.
Dude, okay. Yeah. So to me, yeah, I think Michelle kind of captured it because I knew everybody was going to erupt during that, but they seemed to be erupting like what Michelle was saying, like every single scene. But we got to talk about this character. Let me bring up, because he says a quote in the film. "I've watched you from deep behind Norman's cowardly eyes, struggling to have everything you want, while the world tries to make you choose." I think the Green Goblin the dude pretty much rocked it. So I'm going to talk about, let's get into Green Goblin a little bit. That fight that he had with him in that building was straight MMA, hardcore body slamming. I was like surprised that they went like that with the fight, because it's usually punch, kick. Norman or Goblin picked that dude up and put him through like 3 floors with like just swinging him down. And there's always a quote in the film, and usually trailers will have everything, because I really like voiceovers and voice acting and things like that. So when I heard it in the trailer, everything, I was like, oh man, he is killing these lines. And I think Green Goblin was definitely a standout in the film. The way he was able, because he convinced me. Like, I was like, yo, they're going to make him a good guy? Of course, there's always this little lurking behind, like, but he's probably deceiving. But the way Willem Dafoe just killed both sides of Green Goblin, the good, innocent, like, what's going on? I don't know. And the way he goes into that evil Goblin, I think he annihilated the role. So what are your guys' thoughts? Anybody go first on Green Goblin's performance, the acting, Willem Dafoe, whatever?
Willem Dafoe can do no wrong in my eyes. So, like, even when he was Ryuk in, he was the only saving grace in Death Note. The whole movie was trash except for Ryuk. But Willem Dafoe, like, he's able to really capture like that essence of evil, but not totally evil. Like, you can see like there might be a redeeming quality in the evil. Like, he does a really great job whenever he plays those kinds of roles. So I really enjoyed him being the actor. And because he's smart, he's a doctor, so he knows how to like play this game and to use his knowledge to work for himself. So he knew what to do. He knew how to get in, to make it seem like he wanted to help and be helpful because of how smart he is and how cunning he is. And that goes to show, again, I think the acting in this movie, because we have so many OG actors, that helped the movie as well. So he did an amazing job.
Awesome. Go ahead, Chris.
Okay, I'm gonna jump off for a second. Like, this was one of maybe 4 or 5 moments in the film that really like stuck with me. The first was when they kind of pan out from the cane of Matt Murdock, and then you see you see Daredevil there, and it's like, oh wow, it's Charlie Cox, and it's awesome. So like that's that first moment where like it's like, oh man, it's breathtaking. This is what I want, multiverse. And then that the second would have been this scene where Spider-Man's spider senses is just going off the charts, and he has no idea what's going on because he's been kind of talking to Norman Osborn, and Norman's been sitting there helping him to figure out what how to cure his illness. And then all of a sudden, like when they start to administer these cures, Spider-Man's like what's going on? What's going on? What? And then you hear that cackling voice of Green Goblin start talking, and then he immediately webs his hand with whatever that was in his hand to the window. And then that scene that you just mentioned where he just starts beating the crap out of Spider-Man. That was like really, like, for me, that was like the second moment in the movie where it was just like it just started to kind of take off, and like it got your heart beating. You started getting this anxious anticipation for what's coming next. And what came next was just like a 5-minute like relentless beating, relentless beating, that ended with that bomb scene. So yeah, I love that scene. It was awesome.
Awesome.
For me, I mean, I appreciate it because my Spider-Man's always been like golden era Spider-Man, right? Mm-hmm. And at that point, the Green Goblin is his arch nemesis. It's his Joker to his Batman, and he really wants to ruin Spider-Man. Like that's he gets such a thrill, and usually at least in the Tom Holland films, when he fights people, it's very accurate. He's doing his flips, and this is the first time where he has to go, mano a mano with anyone.
Right.
He's not used to fighting this way. Of course, Goblin is.
Right.
So he got introduced to this form of
this beatdown.
And yeah, that was crazy. And the fact that he helped, cause the death of Aunt May, like that was his thing. Like that was more important than the whole fight.
Yeah.
That was what he wanted. He wanted, like, I need you to suffer. The punches, you're gonna heal from these punches, but you're not gonna heal from this.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with the MJ thing. Got him out the way to try to stop him from saving MJ so he could suffer. Like the Goblin wants him to suffer.
Right.
It's not, I just want to beat you. Ha ha ha. I'm better. No. I need to have these emotional stains put on you, so that even when I'm not around, you're still fighting me in a sense. You know what I mean? So I really appreciate that.
I want to interject a quick thought, like 10 seconds. So I walked away from this film feeling like Willem Dafoe's Goblin was like comparable to Heath Ledger's Joker. Am I crazy with feeling that Willem Dafoe pulled off a portrayal that really that really kind of set a bar of sorts?
Now he killed it.
Dude, he and the fact that you compare the two, right? Because we definitely Spider-Man's rogue gallery is like Batman's rogue. It's like immense. A lot of different villains, and of course the Green Goblin is hands down the Joker to Spider-Man. And the fact, and here's the crazy thing, a lot, because you guys hear it, like if everybody wanted Willem Dafoe to play the Joker at one point, and this kind of shows that he would have been able to pull that role off crazy well, because even though we know he plays Goblin, he doesn't play Goblin like the Joker, but you could see that he could play somebody maniacal. And the fact that, and also, I don't know if you guys noticed, because in the old school Spider-Man, when Green Goblin first showed up, everybody makes the joke that, oh, he's a Power Ranger, the way he got the helmet and everything, and the way he's dressed. But this one, how he was all ripped, he had like the sweater ripped, and he had the, like, it seemed more like the comic book Goblin. Like they were able to, without putting the hoodie on and looking all crazy, like in the comic, they were able to kind of give that same feel of the Green Goblin, and a little, even to some degree, that Hobgoblin feel. They kind of put him in there, but the way that he delivered those lines, of course, when he stabbed your boy in the back, my whole theater like lost it.
Yeah. Like, not the OG, not the OG.
Yeah. Come to find out, what I'm hearing rumbles of is that he was supposed to die in that scene, but Feige changed it because he liked the chemistry between these three Spider-Man, that he may bring them back in the future. And I was like, yo, now the only way I could see them bringing them back, of course, it's not just going to be in some random Spider-Man movie, but maybe when they do Secret Wars and they bring all these characters back, and now that we have this established thing, now all the Spider-Men are going to help because maybe it's going to be a multiversal war versus just in the MCU. Now, I'm thinking that's a way to plug him in, but that was one of the rumors going around that he was supposed to die. And in my head, I was like, yo, you cannot kill Tobey. I said, this theater will start a riot if you kill Tobey in this Spider-Man movie. But, I don't know. What did you guys think about like that whole issue with Tobey Maguire, getting stabbed in the back? And then, of course, I want to definitely come back to Aunt May. We got to talk about Aunt May. But
Nate didn't get to go about the Green Goblin.
My bad. Nate, what was your thoughts on Green Goblin before we move forward? My bad.
You know what? So I remember just being in the theater thinking, like, once he showed up, because I don't think I was sure that Willem Dafoe was going to be in it, because I didn't see the trailer. So all I knew, I think, was Doc Ock and Electro. I think that's because I'd seen that, and then you can't hide the fact that Doc Ock was going to be in there because you see all these "Hello Peter" memes. But I remember just watching.
You didn't know that Green Goblin was going to be in it?
I think I might have seen some rumbles, but I don't think I was entirely sure because I don't think I'd seen any kind of.
So when he popped up in the movie, you must have lost your marbles, man.
Well, I think I was semi-aware, but I think I only knew Doc Ock and Electro for sure. And so I think, so when he shows up at Green Goblin, you don't even see his face, right? You see Green Goblin, so I'm still not sure. But once he does show up, it's just like, oh man, it just felt so good. It felt so right. And seeing Willem Dafoe play that role again, because I remember when they announced that he was going to play Norman Osborn, and I only know like the 90s Spider-Man cartoon. That's my Spider-Man. I didn't read any of the comics, so I only know like Norman and Green Goblin from that. But I remember thinking, oh, that's a good choice, and he was a good choice. Like he did a really good job with Norman and Green Goblin the first time, and then just seeing him again, I'm like, oh, I feel like he's the only Norman Osborn or the only Norman Osborn Green Goblin that we can have, because he plays it so well, and to have him back, it again, it seems like one of those impossible things, and you can't help but smile seeing his performance in it, and just having him there and seeing him go against the Tom Holland Spider-Man. And just having him officially part of the MCU, so do you guys think that was he just faking the whole time, being good until he was cured? I in my mind I thought it was like a no, because I was thinking it was like a Jekyll and Hyde kind of thing, where it's like he kind of was fighting himself, right? That's my kind of thought.
Well, the thing is, look at this quote, because what he said, "I've watched you from deep behind Norman's cowardly eyes." Yep. So the whole thing was he kind of like was hiding behind until the right moment to come out, and he was
right. So Norman, he wasn't fake. So Norman was still there. Like he wasn't pretending to be Norman. Yeah. He was still kind of behind. Right. Okay. So, and it just, and that's I think that's one thing I always liked about his performance with it, because he was Norman himself. He wasn't a perfect guy, but there was still a kind of a goodness about him, I guess. Like you see it at the end of Spider-Man 1, right, where he's thinking about Harry at the very end, like, don't tell Harry, right, about what this is. And so you get to see that good kind of Norman when he's trying to help Peter in the beginning. I took it as he was trying to help Peter, and I liked that. I liked that he was this good guy. And then at the very end, when you kind of see like, what have I done, you get to see that remorse, and you feel it. Which made, it coupled with Tom Holland willing to forgive. I don't know if he was forgiving him, but not to actually kill him, to do what was right. And that Norman felt the weight of that, of being spared by Peter. It's just his whole arc all around. It was. I still can't believe that we had him in this movie, all of them really, but I hope that's not the last time we see Willem Dafoe as in that role.
Oh man, I don't know if we'll see him again. I think
not.
Like of course, if they can write it correctly, I would love to see him again. But if he doesn't fit, I don't want him to force, because I think this film did a great job at not forcing the fan service. Like, I think all of the fan service made sense for the storyline, and that's I think what made this movie so successful. It wasn't just, oh, here's a random cameo. It's like, no, you were an important and critical part of the story, and of course, that's just naturally fan service. All right, so let's talk about Aunt May, like the issue, like when she was killed, and the way she played that. I think she did an excellent job. It's called there's a way that she died that they call it a certain way. It's like it was like, I don't know, it's not zombie something, but it's like it's
it is walking. It's zombie syndrome. I think it is zombie syndrome or something like that.
Yeah. It's like you don't know you're dying, and you just think everything's okay. Like when she got hit by the number one, it was dope that they did a callback to the glider stabbing, because you know how Green Goblin was stabbed and killed by his own glider, but this time she was killed and she didn't know she was dying because she was still trying to protect Peter and still like, and then she was just slowly just coming kind of even all the way to the end. And your boy, this is where I think Tom Holland did a great job, and where he was holding her and he was like, please, please, please. Like he had his lips on her head. I don't know, something about that intimacy of being that close to her and saying, please, 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 please. I think he really nailed that. When she died, it was horrible. And of course, I told my wife the second, and I leaned over to my wife in the theater. I said, she's about to die. Because I told her, I said, the second she said, with great power comes great, I was like, she's dead. It's over. Because she has to be the Uncle Ben to him. And that's what I thought about it. So what did you guys kind of take away from that scene, or about what happened there? Nobody took anything away from it?
Yeah, I would say, go ahead, Michelle. Go ahead, Michelle.
Go ahead, Chris.
Oh, no, I was just jumping in just to kill the silence. So if you got something to say, go ahead.
No, I'm just going to say that because he didn't have an Uncle Ben moment, I think he did need to have an Aunt May moment. And plus, I think it helped him because he was like, I just want to send everybody back and have my regular life. So Aunt May kind of grounded him to have like a moral standard to what he was doing, and to show him like it's not always just about you, which is something that Sorcerer Supreme had to help Doctor Strange with. But it helps him to see like it's not just about him. When you have this kind of power, you have to be responsible. It can no longer just be about what you want and how you feel your life should be. It has to be beneficial to others. So I think he needed to have that moment of pain, because I think it did help shape the original two Spider-Man, because their Uncle Ben had died. So you have this problem where he's just like, granted he didn't really have his parents, but his life wasn't like the easiest, but he didn't really have too hard of a life. His aunt took care of him. He did have a pretty decent friend group before he even became Spider-Man. So he really did need this in order for him to enhance the character of Spider-Man, and for if they're going to do 3 more movies of Spider-Man, he need this in order to have like a reason to like keep moving.
Right. Absolutely. And Benjamin Hannum, he says at Real Reviews, he said that moment for me was MCU Spider-Man finally becoming a real Spider-Man. And I think I agree with you. I think the way they brought in Spider-Man, because we were so used to, okay, let's tell the origin story. Let's tell how he becomes Spider-Man. I think what happened was the MCU, instead of doing that all over again, they kind of went further back to bring us to this point. I mean, because obviously it was a plan, right? It wasn't just like, oh, let's just. So for me, it's like when we first saw him, it was just the immature, like first beginnings of Spider-Man. And then Tony Stark took him under his wing. And then he was really wanting to be like Stark, which is technically like a callback to the cartoon, the newer cartoon where he's kind of like enthralled by Tony Stark, his tech and all this stuff. So the cartoon, I think it's called The Amazing Spider-Man. I think that's the name of the cartoon, but I could be wrong. But he was very enthralled by Tony. So I think they used that element to kind of bring him into this point. And so we actually got to see the kid become, or to become that Spider-Man. Whereas, the original Spider-Man movies, they were able to do it within 2 hours. these people decided these people, but this the MCU decided to take it further back. And so now we have, and I talked a little bit about it earlier. And I think you said I also love the new costume by the M. He actually looks like Spider-Man now. I said it at the very beginning, so you just came in. But that was, to me, the best way to end the film, was him actually manufacturing and sewing his own suit, because it tells you that he didn't get help from Tony. He didn't get help from anybody else. Now he's becoming his own Spider-Man. And to me, when they did the classic OG outfit, at first, because I'm like, how are they gonna, like, when I first saw it, I was like scared. I'm like, oh, I hope this doesn't look bad, because sometimes you can't really bring certain costumes into the MCU and actually make it look good. But they did it. They did a good job with it, and I'm hoping that he holds on to that suit until we see him again and not change it, because I'm like, that'll be a horrible opportunity to waste bringing in the old school suit that way. So yeah. So okay, so let's go into what else. What other parts about the film? Let's talk a little bit about maybe the emotional scenes. What emotional scenes really hit you in the heart when it came to this film?
Well, I can talk a little bit about Aunt May.
Oh, my bad. No, I'm over here. Just go. Aunt May. My bad.
Oh, yeah. So no, I think, it's funny because looking back on it, I feel like we should have realized that she was gonna die. And I'm just thinking about this now because she plays the moral compass more in this movie, I think, than any of the other times. Which I really liked. I liked that she was playing that moral compass for Peter. Which it's interesting because she's a little bit different than the other kind of Aunt Mays who is just like worried about Peter all the time. Like the fact that she's okay with Peter being Spider-Man, I think it's different, and I like that. But it's sort of like it kind of reminds me of The Walking Dead. Because I used to also watch the after show called The Talking Dead. And they always pointed out that somebody is going to die if they become the moral compass in the show, right? Every time somebody starts moralizing or something, you're like, okay, they're dying, like in this episode, right? So it's just like, oh, okay, you know what? That's true. Like Aunt May, we should have seen that she's going to die because that's what's going to happen. But it's interesting because I don't always like when they turn something around, right? Like how she becomes the Uncle Ben, right? But I liked it this time because, for one, we've already had two Uncle Bens die in front of us. I sort of just assumed that that he died in this one as well. That the Peter had his moment with Uncle Ben off screen, and because I think when he meets Tony, he's just kind of like. Well, something happened. He's like, yeah, sure, whatever, kid. And right. So whatever he said. So you just kind of think, okay, well, he had his didn't save Uncle Ben moment or whatever. That was just my assumption. Right. But I was thinking about it, and I'm like, Aunt May has been with him this whole time, and she was with him as Spider-Man for Far From Home, and it felt right to have her be the one to say, that with great power comes great responsibility, and have her be that important figure in his life because she's the one that has been carrying him through this. And we'll always have the Uncle Bens for the other ones. I mean, that's still the classic origin story, and that's I'm glad that they have that with Andrew and Tobey. But with I think it was good that they took the opportunity to give May that role for this one, and I don't think I knew she was going to die until she's kind of just like I'm okay. I think you kind of get a sense, right? And you're just like, oh no,
yeah.
You don't want anyone to die, right? Like I think that's good. Like if you can kill somebody off and make people sad, but not make you angry at you, then you're doing it right. And I think that's what they did with this character. Right. But that is sad. But the fact that they could, because Aunt May has always been kind of older too, right? Even Sally Fields was a little bit older. So it's to be able to pull off a different kind of Aunt May. They did good to be able to have us accept her as Aunt May. And I think I kind of agree with Benjamin. I mean, I've always liked the Tom Holland Spider-Man. But it never felt quite like Spider-Man to me as well. Like it never felt quite the same. So I always kind of just felt like, okay, this is a different this is just, I like the character, but I think I didn't always think of him as Spider-Man. Like I remember at the very end of Far From Home when he starts swinging, after he comes home and he starts swinging through New York, I'm like, oh, this is what I miss. Like, I miss him just swinging through New York. Yeah. And I think I distinctly remember thinking, man, I also miss J.K. Simmons as J. Jonah Jameson. Yeah. And then he shows up, and I'm like, stop reading my mind. But I think, yeah, so it does kind of feel like that they bring him back to that role, and it's sort of like I feel like the Bond the Daniel Craig Bond trilogy, because it I think up until Skyfall that was all like a prequel trilogy to me, like because you have him deal with a bunch of stuff, and then you get the male M back, and you bring Q and stuff back. So it felt like the same thing. I think now thinking about it, like thinking what you guys are saying, it's just like, okay, yeah, this is sort of like we're getting a prequel trilogy of sorts for a Spider-Man origin, and having May play that role was that was nice to actually give her that kind of meat, I think.
Awesome. Chris or Michelle, as far as like when it comes to Aunt May, that whole scene, what were your thoughts on it?
Well, I gave my thoughts. I think she needed to die for him to become a better Spider-Man. I mean, I know it was a long time ago, but I didn't think it was that long ago. No, I'm playing. I do think that I think it's going to help him develop. I think we had hints of who some of his villains may be in the upcoming movies, but I figured, like, even I didn't watch any spoilers or anything, but I figured Aunt May was going to die in this movie. Like, even before it came, I said, this is the longest Spider-Man has had a relative live in movies. They're probably going to kill Aunt May. And they killed her. And I felt bad because I really like Happy, and he was happy with Aunt May. And, he lost somebody. First he loses Tony, and then he loses May. He doesn't even remember Peter. So, like, even the loss for, Happy in this movie was kind of like, I didn't cry because I'm a G. But if I did cry, I would have cried for Happy, because all the loss that he has experienced, even not realizing that he lost Spider-Man, but all the loss he has experienced, like, in this short amount of time in these movies, because I always rooted for him. He's always been like the happy one, the helpful one. And so just to see that amount of pain just for him as well, because everybody, like, we focus on Spider-Man because it's his movie, but he's not the only person in this movie who lost Aunt May and lost Tony, and then has to, lose the Avengers that are no longer, here. Happy also lost these people too. And I think we kind of relegate that because he's more of like a secondary character. But he's going through like these same emotions and still trying to like be helpful to Peter during this time too. And I think, and I don't know if we're going to get to it, but like, we see the redemption in this movie. And like, even though we have the redemption in this movie, you see Peter, the other two Peters help Peter not go down that same path that they went down of revenge, trying to, kill the Green Goblin. When Peter jumps in and stops him, like, I get it. You want to kill him because of Aunt May, but this isn't the way to do it. So I think we see, like, even though they didn't have somebody to help them with that, he had them to help him with that. And I think that was also another amazing moment that came from the death of Aunt May. Like, we see him go like crazy, which is something we never seen before. But then we see, because Aunt May did instill in him like these moral compasses, that when Tobey comes and says something to him, it resonates with him because of what he was taught.
Right. Chris, I know you got to go in a little bit, so everything you want to say, bro, is your show right now. Go for it, man.
Okay. No, so like, I had mixed feelings about Aunt May. Like, I really felt like she was a part of the problem, not the solution, while I was watching the film live. Because in my mind, I'm like, I kind of agreed with Dr. Strange. Press the button, solve the problem, kind of a deal. So her encouraging him to fix them, like, to me, the logic, like, I, first of all, like, it's a comic movie, so like I don't expect the logic to be perfect. And this wasn't something that like annoyed me or anything like that. It was just more of a like, well, when they go back, they're going to go back to the moment that they died. So are they like in some cases, like maybe Norman Osborn, he could potentially live because boom, instead of him trying to what did he say in the film Sayonara Peter Parker or something like that, whatever he said at the end of that Spider-Man, the original Spider-Man, maybe he doesn't do that and he lives. Doc Ock was sacrificing himself to save the world because the black hole was about to open up from his machine. So yeah, to me it's like the logic on that little piece didn't work, and her feeling like fixing them before he sent them back would make, like, how she had this sense that would make a difference was beyond me. And that kind of was a little bit of annoying to me because I felt like, oh yeah, well maybe this is where all this immaturity comes from in Peter, where he's always trying to bite off more than he can chew. That said, when she said the line and it dawned on me, okay, she's his Uncle Ben, it was like, okay, that kind of gave a little bit of redemption for her. And then her, like, at the time when Norman Osborn went Goblin and Peter had to like resolve it in a moment, like often you'll see like a naive character saying, no, we're going to stay here and fight with you. And he's like, get out of here. And she's like, yep. And she grabs the serum and she gets out of there.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, okay, that's what you're supposed to do. You're not durable. You're not a superhero. Get out of there and, hurry up and get out of there as quickly as you can. I really kind of in a different part of the movie, I enjoyed that part where Peter traps Doctor Strange and takes him off the table in the mirror dimension to where he goes, oh, I don't know magic, but I know geometry. And he starts shooting his webs all over the place.
Awesome
and then he wraps him up and then grabs the sling ring to get him stuck in there. I thought that was a very brilliant way to take Doctor Strange off of the table and to give Peter that little period in the movie that he needed in order for him to have his character arc development. So yeah, I really enjoyed that. And then earlier you asked a question about the emotional the emotional part of the movie, and it's the obvious part. It's that part at the end with Peter losing it, and Peter just like Tom Holland. Peter just like I loved it for multiple reasons. I loved it because it gave this sense of humanity. Like oftentimes we see heroes, even the heroes, act irrational, and to me, this was a moment where he acted very rational. He acted very human, and like I don't know a whole lot of people who would have the restraint with a guy sitting there getting in your ear, telling you all this, insane stuff, and then having those supernatural abilities like Green Goblin has, for you to be like, oh yeah, I just got this one way to solve this problem. I'm gonna take this guy out. So that was a very it was nice to see him act human in that moment, and then and then to see him not pull his punches. To me, all these superhero movies, that's one of the biggest frustrations. Everybody has Superman syndrome. Everybody doesn't want to hurt the person, and they're always pulling their punches, and then there's more collateral damage because you put your punches. And in this case, he's just cutting loose. I mean, he was cutting loose on Green Goblin, and it was like, yes. I mean, like, I'm not yesing for him to kill him, but I was like, yes, beat this guy. Let this guy feel what he dishes out to everybody else. Let him get a taste of his own medicine. So yeah, those are kind of things that kind of stuck with me. And like, as I haven't seen it the second time yet, I'm waiting because my godson, he was supposed to go see it with me. His dad caught COVID. They got quarantined. So now I get to go see another time in the theater, and I'm looking forward to that to kind of pick up on some more. But those are some of the things that kind of stood out to me. Just so everybody know, like, my church does a Living Nativity every year, and my wife is singing at the Living Nativity. My son plays one of the wise men, and I'm like the greeter to people who are coming. So I got to leave early to get there early so that I can do that on time. And so the last thing I want to do, because I got to go at like 2:30. I'll stay on until 2:30.
All right.
But I wanted to give
us your ranking before you go.
Yeah, that's what I want to do. I want to do my ranking. So my ranking would be like, I rank movies two ways. One way is I give it like a grade. It's like all four of us can write a paper, and we can all four receive an A for different reasons. Or, so it's like A, B, C, D, E grade is more, A, B, C, D, F grade is more of a you know, quality of movie. As far as a quality of movie, I gave it an A. I really felt like this movie had so many elements to it that it could have easily failed. They could have easily not worked together very well. It could have easily failed. And the fact that they pulled off a movie that really fit, I thought that was like kudos. That was awesome. Again, I watched a bunch of spoilers, went to the movie, and the movie far exceeded my expectation, even knowing plenty of spoilers and parts of the plot. On a scale of 1 to 5, okay, in my mind there is no perfect movie. So with that said, I'd give it a 4.9. I thought it was close to a perfect movie as you could get. Again, had its minor little plot things, like, if everybody forgets Peter Parker, does that mean everybody forget Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire back in their universe? I mean, I had like little stuff like that they kind of left out. I know early on, I saw when they were shooting it, they had a Craven cube truck that we saw on like early leaks from it. So not like I didn't miss Craven because everybody that was there was fulfilling, but man, it would have been nice to see Craven. But I'm guessing they wouldn't have done him any justice in a bit role. So I'm like, okay, I'm not all that mad. Just mad that they showed me that cube truck with Craven on it to begin with. But yeah, I give it a 4.9 and an 8. I really felt like it was a high quality comic movie, and it was a very well told story that man, I just I feel like I want to see it again, and it was very satisfying. Often with movies with that type of expectation, there's always a letdown. There was no letdown for me in this movie. It was just awesome. Yeah, that's my grade for the movie.
Awesome. Thanks, man. So I'm trying to think. Okay, so for the emotional part for me, I just kind of like run through the film. Number one, I loved the interaction between all of the Peter Parkers and how they kind of were able to share the battle scars, the things that they've been through, the way they interacted. There was 2 main scenes that really got me teared up. The tear didn't fall, so it doesn't count. I didn't cry at the movie, but it was sitting there, just right there on that little eyelash. I looked up, let it soak back in, but it was okay. So the 2 scenes. Number one, the first scene was when Andrew Garfield's Peter Parker said, "I really love you guys. I've always wanted brothers." Now, of course, if you know my history, you know why that was a big deal for me. And so when he did that, I felt it right in the heart. I was like, I can't believe, oh man. And then I started to tear up a little bit because I could feel what he was feeling. It's like everybody in his world, like he didn't have anybody to connect with. And the fact that he connected with these 2 Spider-Men was so important to me that the director did in the film. And he did an awesome job. The writers and the director and everybody involved did a great job kind of showing that. And of course, the redemption moment for Andrew's when he caught her. Like, I expected that to happen, that Andrew was going to be in it, that he was going to be the one to catch her. But I think the way they did it was just so amazing. The fact that, and Alfredo talked about it a little earlier, how they caught her, right? Because he didn't make the same mistake. He didn't just hit her with the web and pull her up. He actually wrapped himself around her this time. And of course, I don't think he could have pulled that off in the other scene. He was just too far away. But the way that he did it is like he hugged her and held her, and kind of like what Nate said, I just think that it should have went that way. Like he should have. What was it that you said again of how he should have interacted, or she should have said something?
I wish he had said thank you, Peter.
That was, to me, that's perfect, because it would have been like Emma Watson saying that to him, like thank you. And he actually saved her. Because can you imagine like that moment in real life, that one time in life that you wish you would have made a different decision? If you had the opportunity to make that same decision, now you would have done it differently. And he got that opportunity. And I think that, to me, it kind of hits you in the heart, because I think everybody could kind of relate to that. And that's what makes Peter Parker so popular, is that you can relate to him, because he has a hard time catching a big break. Everything is so hard on this guy. Like, no matter what he tries to do the right thing. He always tries to do, and he always has the short end of the stick. But another thing that, and what Chris was talking about, like that little inconsistency, like when Aunt May told him, to do the right thing, even though it would cost all of this. I think it was illogical for us, but perfectly consistent with Peter Parker's character. because that's exactly what he would have done. Because he's looking at it through the eyes of, I want to be helpful. I want to give people an opportunity. And I kind of think that he paints that picture of, even though doing the right thing is the right thing, it may not always yield the results that you want, or the best results. And, in this life that we live, it's hard to do the right thing. And even though you're doing the right thing, you're not going to get the righteous reward that should come from it, or, things like that. So I think they were consistent with this character in that way, even though it was illogical to us. It's like, come on, dude, these dudes are villains. Like, you're not gonna change them in a moment. But I think it really touches, especially, us being Christians, it really touches on, we do have the kind of, what they call it, a redeemer quality, or the thing that we want to be the one to help save someone, right? And I think that's what Peter Parker kind of painted in that way. I don't know, Nate or Michelle, as far as that goes, like, the emotional moments in the film for you. What are the things? I know we all kind of like touched on it with everybody, but just to kind of reiterate for the audience, what was it?
Well, my emotional moment wasn't even at the actual movie. I rewatched The Amazing Spider-Man with the kids, and when Uncle Ben died, the girl was like, "Oh no, he didn't pray for his uncle," and that meant more to me than anything. Well, I mean, she messed it up afterwards because she was like, "You and the lizard got the same eyes," and I was like, "Okay."
That is epic.
like everybody with green eyes aren't lizard.
Did you go all Smiggle like, "You ruined it"?
No, I just looked at her like, okay, everybody with green eyes don't have the same green eyes, little girl. But I guess that to me was more emotional. Like, she wanted Peter to pray for Uncle Ben. I was like, oh, he's so sweet. But in the actual, No Way Home, I think the most emotional part for me was Peter opening the door to his apartment by himself, literally with nobody. Like, nobody knows who he is anymore. He's literally all alone in this world. Like, he's Spider-Man. So you have this responsibility, and it's like, because I am Jordan's sister, and if you say something crazy about him, you'll find out real quick I'm actually his sister. I can't imagine Jordan not being my brother. And we say, like, we could come together, we say crazy stuff together, like, even if we don't say, like, oh, we're having a hard day, we'll laugh with each other, and that helps us. And so he doesn't have that. Like, he can't be like, oh, go on one of Nate's posts and be like, Nate, that's where do you even get this from, Nate? Like, Nate's mind is amazing to me. Like, it's very different, and I love it. I really do love it. That's why I'm always one of the top people in that friendship list thing on Facebook, because I really enjoy interacting with Nate. Like, his mind to me is really, he's the Amazing Spider-Man, just because of the way he thinks and stuff. And it gives me a different perspective, because I don't look at things like that, and it helps me to grow and, in different areas. And I have so many amazing people in my life. He doesn't have that anymore. Like, he had an Ame, he had an MJ, he had a Ned, he was a whole Avenger. He doesn't have that any longer.
Peace out, Chris.
So, bye, Chris. So to me, the most emotional part was that, him being by himself and being alone. Because, even though when, we say man is not meant to be alone, we mean it in the context of marriage. Men are not meant to be alone at all. Like, just in companionship and friendship and having people there for you. And Peter is literally alone. He goes in to try to convince, Ned and MJ, and he see how easy their life is now. And he makes that sacrifice to stay alone because he doesn't want them to befall the things that happened to them previously. So to me, that was like and plus, I love Doctor Strange. He's probably my top 3 Marvel characters. To see him being strung up by a Spider-Man, I was ready to fight Peter myself. I was like, Peter, this ain't the work you want. Okay, what wedge you got? But that probably was the most emotional moment for me, seeing Peter by himself.
And wasn't it to me? It was like a call, like Doctor Strange getting his just desserts for what he did to Loki. Because remember, he had him in that loop, and he just kept
Oh
him
yeah,
falling. And I
kept
felt like
falling.
Spider-Man got the vengeance that Loki wanted, and just kept him in that
Kept him
dimension.
in that loop.
That
That's
was
funny. But yeah, so that part to me, and I'll also say, it was like seeing all the Spider-Mans together was probably emotional, just because, again, I grew up with Tobey, and then I got to watch the Amazing Spider-Man.
Don't pay
You know
attention.
what?
He already started that weirdness
what?
up there at the top. Talk about swinging and
Ben!
back issues.
You know what? Anybody named Ben gets a pass, just because all the Uncle Bens don't get to make it in Spider-Man world. So we'll give you a pass, Ben.
We'll
just
let you
for that
live.
alone.
You don't die in this episode.
Ben is telling his age when that's the emotional part for him. That's all I'm gonna say. Ben is telling how old he is, because it's too complaining we're the old Spider-Man. That's all I'm gonna say.
I think he meant something different from the back pain, though. We'll talk about it behind the scenes.
Oh Lord Jesus.
Yeah,
But,
exactly. He needs that right now.
So yeah, I guess that. But I love the movie. So
Awesome. Nate, what was, as far as like the emotional points? Like we'll do this here. Like the emotional points of the film. What were the highlights for you on that?
Before I get into that, I think I was watching the Screen Crush thing on this, and I think they mentioned that the back pain thing was actually a specific callback, because I think Tobey Maguire actually hurt his back, I think, in the midst of the era of the Spider-Man trilogy, right? Like on Seabiscuit or something like that. And then they even made reference to it in the second Spider-Man movie, I think, if I'm correct.
Well, yeah, when he fell from the roof and hit the garbage cans, he was like, he's trying to stand. He's like, oh, my back.
Yeah. But anyway, emotional moments. I think there was a lot of emotional moments. I'm trying to think now. I feel like I remember tearing up a little. Part of that might have been just before going to see the movie, we did get notice of somebody in the apologetics community that went to be with the Lord, so I was already a little bit emotional. But there were a lot of good moments. I think. I mean, again, seeing the two the two Spider-Men come in, the old Spider-Man, that was emotional. And they still got it. They still got the roles. They knew how to play those their respective Peters, and seeing them pull that off and being able to revisit these characters, I think that just as a fan was emotional. I think when Tom Holland's Peter was wailing on Green Goblin, and he wants to kill him.
Yeah.
And you're just trying to figure out, okay, what are they going to do? And in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, maybe Andrew and Tobey are going to try to save him. But I think it worked that Tobey was the one that stepped in, and he comes in, and he's not even saving Norman. He's saving Peter. Peter is saving Peter. That's what he's doing.
Right.
And the way Tobey, he's struggling to fight against him, and he looks at him. He doesn't say anything. Everything is in the look. And this is like Tobey Maguire's brilliance in his acting in his Peter. He brought his Peter, everything that's distinctive about his Peter, I feel like you see it in that moment. And everything that he went through, everything that he had to learn, all the mistakes he had to make, and he's coming in there and saying, you don't want to do this. Don't do this. And it that moment was just perfect. And I'm really glad they didn't kill that's Tobey Maguire Spider-Man. When they stabbed, I was like, no, don't do it, please. I don't want that. I don't know that you can't do that. And I'm glad they didn't. I'm glad when he's like, oh, it's okay, I've been stabbed before. You kind of there's a kind of little bit of relief there. But yeah, that moment was big. I think obviously when MJ was saved, again, I wish she said thank you, Peter. I think that I was almost expecting it, and I was like, to say it, and it's like it kind of felt a little bit flat. It was still a great moment. I love to see the emotion in Andrew Garfield's face. Again, that hit the weight that he felt with his Spider-Man, and everything that he went through, and he didn't even get to resolve a lot of stuff, right? Because it just. Amazing Spider-Man 2 ended on sort of a hopeful but still somber note, and so be able to give him some resolution was really satisfying. And I love that. I love all the moments just like that they give them together, just the Spider-Man to talk to each other. Those are fun. Not necessarily as emotional, but it's still fun just to have those moments. Especially when Ned's like, Peter, we're all. I can't even remember how the whole thing went, but that was hilarious. I think the thing that really was the most emotional, the thing that really hurt the most, was the fact that everyone had to forget Peter. That was, I mean, that really hurt. Like, I think it's good for the story. They did it right. At the same time, there's still a part of me that wants everyone to remember him. Like, I don't really want them to change it because I feel like it serves the story, but at the same time, I do want them to change it. So I think that's like one of those things where you can do something that you if they can do something that you don't like, at the same time you say it was the right choice, you're doing it right. But that was so painful to have every single person not know.
Right.
I don't know. There's still a part of me that is longing for that to be reversed, and I hope it is in some way in the future. Maybe way down the line, people can remember who he was or something. I don't know. That might not serve the story that well. But it just feels almost like you've erased everything that he went through. Obviously he remembers, but like so like when he sees MJ again and Ned, and they don't remember him at all. Right. Even like when she's waving and you're like, oh, maybe she does remember. Maybe there was an exception there.
They kept that hope alive, right?
Yeah. And it was like, oh my gosh, like, because it's like. You're happy because she was a good MJ. Like she was never like she's not. I mean, I'm glad they didn't make her Mary Jane, because it's not Mary. Like Mary Jane is a redhead. Like that's who Mary Jane wasn't a redhead. So it's like I'm glad that they make her MJ, but that she's not Mary Jane, because I like this character. I actually like this MJ, and they really did a good job with her, and they have. Zendaya and Tom Holland have a really good chemistry, I think, and so I enjoyed that. And so it really hurts, the fact that they were together. She knows who he is, and the fact that she accepts him for who he is. Because one of the things I was sort of annoying to me with
Tobey.
Mary Jane and the Tobey was just like. Oh. It's a trope. It's like, I mean, it's you kind of understand it, but at the same time, it's an annoying trope that's like where your love interest is kind of like, you're just not there for me. You're always running off, and and it's just like, you understand it, like it's kind of legitimate, but at the same time, you're just kind of mad at her. And I love that they don't do that, and with this Spider-Man, like she kind of just knows who he is. Like she kind of figures it out. She's always looking at him side-eyed, and she accepted. I mean, she still kind of lays into him, or it's just like, okay, I understand you got to do what you do. Just maybe bring us into it next time if you're going to try to change the world and make everyone forget or whatever. It's just like, okay, you don't let him get away with it. At the same time, you don't place this like heavy burden on him either, annoyingly.
Right.
So all of that together, it's just like, having them all forget. I think that was the hardest thing. I just, I can't imagine that. They did something similar on Supergirl, where people had to forget her, like the person closest to her had to forget who she was, that she was Supergirl, and that sort of reminded me of that. Because I can't imagine having to live with somebody that you care about and they don't know like who you are, or aspects of who you are. I guess that's still like. I don't even know. Like it's, I'm interested to see where they go with this. And we can talk about this, especially since I think we all kind of expected him to go to a different universe, but he's still in the MCU universe. So that's
Yeah.
kind of interesting. So I'm
And they showed
curious
him
to see where they go with it.
flinging during Christmas time in New York, and we also know
Oh yeah,
Hawkeye is taking place around that time. So I wonder if they're going to try to make a connection, because they already showed Daredevil. We know
Ooh.
Kingpin is in Hawkeye. So are they going to make that connection next Wednesday that Spider-Man is somewhere around what's happening at Christmas time? I don't know.
That would be interesting. Maybe they might make a reference to it. I almost feel like they wouldn't necessarily bring him in just
Well,
because
wait a minute.
they know.
Remember last time when I said Yelena
Statue
said
of
I got to go see the reconstruction of the Statue of Liberty.
Yeah.
So maybe that's the reason, because that whole shield fell down during their whole fight. So maybe that's what she's talking about, because they have to reconstruct it because of the damage
That's
that was done
what I
from
assumed.
their fight.
Yeah.
Oh man, that'll be so dope.
Yeah, man, I don't. Yeah, that's the everyone forgetting it's still weighing on me. I'm just like I feel it for him. Like I'm just like I don't like you're all alone. That's like
That's so sad.
it is so
That's the
sad.
part that
It
got
is so
me.
yeah.
But that's so integral to the character, right? Because now he made the big sacrifice. Like everybody has to make that, but he did it. He was like, because we know how much he loved MJ, how much he loved his friend Ned. He even said it like when my favorite, he said, one of the only times of peace that I had is when you found out that week. Of course, that was talking about Far From Home, when she found out that he was Spider-Man. So that was his only sense of peace, and he gave that up. And so he made the big sacrifice. So I don't know if they're going to take that from him. I don't know if they're going to be like,
They have to. And I'm
You
going to
think
tell
they're-
you why.
Okay,
And I'm
go
going
for
to tell
it.
you why. So this is about to get into comic book stuff.
Go for
So-
it. Go for it.
So
Get
now,
nerdy.
now Ned is in. Okay, first I'll go to the mid-credit scene. We see
Okay.
Eddie Brock there, and we see part of Venom is still there
Mm-hmm.
when Eddie Brock leaves. Well, in the comics, Flash becomes Agent Venom. In the
Right.
comic books, Flash doesn't know who Peter is. So now we have a point that Flash could become Agent Venom, which is one of the nemesis of Spider-Man.
Mhm.
We also have Ned becoming Hobgoblin. He won't become Hobgoblin if he knows Peter, because, well, he could take the Harry route, but he may not take the Harry route. So we have a possible. Like, why there's another room? So leave it to Lenny.
Go for it. So keep
So
on going.
we have Ned becoming the Hobgoblin. So it makes sense that they don't know who he is, because it makes for a better story when they become his nemesis. I don't know if they're going to take the comic book route, but him having the traditional Spider-Man outfit on seems like they may take more of the comic book route. And then Chris brought up Kraven. Kraven is one of the Sinister Six. So we have, like, people that we know are Spider-Man villains. Like, we see traces of them being in the movie. Ned doesn't know Spider-Man. Doesn't know Peter Parker.
Mhm.
Well, in the comics, when he becomes Hobgoblin, he doesn't know him either. So I'm thinking all this leads to Sony now having their rights to exclusive Spider-Man without him being in the MCU, because these stories don't take place in the big Marvel Cinematic Universe. So now we can see how all of this can come to play, because Peter still remembers Mysterio, because he is one of the Sinister Six as well. He's still going to remember Green Goblin. But Green Goblin isn't the Sinister Six, but he's still going to remember Electro. He's going to remember Dr. I love Doc Ock. I don't know why, but I do.
He nailed that role.
He did. He said, "The power of the sun is now in my hand." Like, that's all he ever wanted. And he got it. I was happy for him. So we see all of this. So now he remembers all these things. So it still makes, like, we may not get the Sinister Six as the Sinister Six, but we see how the Sinister Six has being played out in the different Spider-Man movies. So I kind of like how it's going. And plus now Peter can develop his own, friendships as adult Peter, because we see he's going to get his GED, which, as smart as he is, it shouldn't be a problem. But now we get to see, like, adult Peter, who would have already had the world kind of handed to him because of how smart he is, which is a plus. Smart in having having intelligence is also a gift that we should use responsible. And so now he's not only smart, he's also Spider-Man. We can see this play out, and we may get some comic book versions of Craven. We may get some comic book versions of, Hobgoblin and Agent Venom, which you have to know the comics to know that Flash becomes Agent Venom. Like I don't hear a lot of people talking about it, but that's who he eventually becomes. So with Venom leaving part of himself there, I'm really excited to kind of see how this all plays out. And to see Tom Holland become in his own right his own Spider-Man, because Tom Holland's movies are always geared to the bigger MCU. And Tobey didn't have to worry about that. Andrew didn't have to worry about that. And I think if Gwen had lived, I think Gwen would have kind of been like this MJ, Michelle Jones. I think she would have been more like her, because she was just as smart as this MJ. Mary Jane wasn't. I mean, she wasn't that smart. I mean, not that's a bad thing, but I think
she wasn't like genius level, right? Like these cats are.
Yeah. So and so I think because Gwen was really smart and MJ was really smart, they understood more of what Spider-Man had to do and kind of like how he had to live his life, as opposed to MJ. That wasn't the trajectory she was on. So I think that kind of made a difference for that one. But I'm glad to see that we get to see the Spider-Man, him be his own Spider-Man, as opposed to we had to fit this because we need these storylines to work with the bigger MCU. I'm sad to see him out of the MCU, because I think with what we've seen, he would have been amazing at it. But I really want to see Agent Venom. Like again, I like the villains, and Agent Venom is like, he's pretty dope in the comics. And I like Hobgoblin. I don't think Harry was a good Hobgoblin. But I think Ned in the comics was an amazing, and plus he was for him to become it, he was kind of brainwashed. So it would be amazing to see, like, after that brainwash is over, if he doesn't kill the Hobgoblin, after it's over, will he remember him and Peter being friends in the past? Like somehow it just retroacts his memory to help him remember him and Peter's friendship. So I'm excited to see, like, if they take that route, or if he never remembers Peter again, or if Peter and MJ like get together because they maybe study together or something like that. So I'm excited to see how they work all this out.
Well, here's the thing, like, because I know that everybody else forgot about him. I'm interested in how the directors and writers are going to write Peter Parker knowing that everybody forgot about him, right? Because he knows who he is. He knows that he had all of these relationships with these specific individuals. So how I'm interested to see how they're going to use that. Are they going to, okay, now everybody forgot, so Peter Parker is going to pretend like he doesn't know anything? Or are they going to write it to where he's going to be the individual, like, for example, at the coffee shop when he tries to talk to her? And let me see, somebody wrote something here. Where is it? Okay. Revelation said she did have a lasting look at him when he left with the coffee. So something may still be there. And I don't know if, here's the thing, because that thing can actually get disrupted if we see how Doctor Strange plays out with the whole multiverse of madness, where everybody forgot about him, but now this multiverse of madness happens, and maybe now something glitches, and the ones from the spell or whatever maybe now remember him, or whatever it is, the ones what he originally wanted. They could go that route to where he made the sacrifice, and because he made the sacrifice, now he gets back what he originally wanted when he was casting, Doctor Strange was casting the spell, saying, no, I only want the people who, like Happy, MJ, and Ned to remember. But I like your idea where these characters now don't know him. Ned doesn't know him, and now he can become the villain. Because again, he did make that inference saying, well, I'll never become the villain, because the way he was looking at the other Peters, and he was like, what happened? That was a funny scene, because he was like, well, how about your friend? Oh, he became a villain and I had to fight him. He's like, oh man, because everybody has their own version of themselves in the in the multiverse, right? So just like there were multiple Peters, there are multiple Electros, there are multiple Neds. So maybe you're right. Maybe Ned will come back as the Hobgoblin, because I remember him talking, because he had lost a lot of weight, that Ned. And so now, and then he got to the point where he was starting to look ripped. But then I heard an interview where he was saying things like, well, I have to maintain this weight because of this character, because he's the stereotypical, friend that doesn't look athletic at all. And so I'm thinking, wait a minute, does that mean then that you're actually going to come back ripped and be the Hobgoblin? That would be dope. And because, and from what I heard, this is like his first role in a film. I'm like, dude, how are you going to have your first role in the film in a Spider-Man MCU movie, that big? And I'm like, what a lucky dude, man. What a lucky dude. Let me see. Miles Morales, Parker Industries should be his end goal. He might not be out of the MCU. Kevin Feige and them said they will be do more movies. I know we're definitely getting more Spider-Man movies, but I'm interested to see how they handle Peter's knowledge of everybody going forward with his interactions. And is he gonna bring this MJ back, right? Because we know that her name is Michelle Jones, right? And of course, the nickname was MJ. I'm thinking that it's going to be the end of Zendaya's role, and he's actually going to meet somebody called Mary Jane, and that MJ is going to trigger a connection between him and Mary Jane, what he had with the original MJ.
I will boo that. I will boo that.
I know, because she is a cool MJ. Their relationship and their chemistry was awesome, because Benjamin Handelman agrees with me on this aspect. He said, what Nate's saying right now is why I liked Emma Stone so much as Gwen Stacy in the Andrew Garfield films. She had an independence of character. They had the best chemistry of any, in my opinion. I know that I think the chemistry in this film was better than the past two for Tom Holland. But I think overall, the relationship between Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone was better, just because I felt like they were in the same mindset. They both had the same smarts. Their relationship was, the young, hopeful, kooky, comedic. I just felt like they really meshed well. I'm hoping that I think Tom Holland in these next three films is really going to show us what kind of Peter Parker he's going to be. Like, is he going to be the one? Because he does have a combination of both of them, and it's there, but it's not pronounced. And I think maybe these next three films, it may become pronounced that he is the pinnacle of Peter Parker in the films, especially since we now have all these movies behind him with that much history. So it may be the big thing. I don't know, Nate or Michelle, any final thoughts? And you know what? Let's just do our final ratings, final thoughts. Let's start with Michelle. Michelle, final rating and thoughts, and maybe takeaways from the film. And future of the MCU. Go for it, because we got to talk about that.
Okay, so future of the MCU. I'll start with that. Right. The end credit scene with Doctor Strange, like I think Nate said it earlier, we see the evil Doctor Strange from What If. I think it was either Nate or BK. And I love Doctor Strange. He can do no wrong, evil or otherwise. And so it made me start to think. So I'll just about go on a quick tangent. I don't want T'Challa recast it for several reasons, because Chadwick Boseman killed that. Mm-hmm. But I do want T'Challa recast it, because it opens up the storyline for the MCU in Black Panther if T'Challa is recasted. Mm-hmm. So it's like, I'm kind of like, on that. So I'm excited to see where that goes with what they do with Wakanda Forever. I also do want to see Miles. I want to see Miles inside the MCU.
Me and BK want to see
Miles. I know y'all want, at this point, y'all want any Puerto Rican to be. That's not Groot.
We need representation in the MCU.
Yeah, that's not Groot. They love Groot. They just don't want to just be Groot. But I think with seeing Doctor Strange, and then seeing how, because he opened up the multiverse, and when we watched WandaVision, we heard this kid scream "Mom," and I said in the beginning, I think Mom is for Multiverse of Madness. And so when Doctor Strange goes to her, he explains to her what's going on. He says, "What do you know?" And she's like, "Oh, here we go." And so, like, I'm excited to see how and then we see in the end of Loki, how Loki is like, oh my gosh, this is what's going on. But we see the big statue of Kang the Conqueror, like sitting there. And we're like, and then we see the multiverse like opening up before Strange like fixes the spell for everybody forget Peter. Mm-hmm. And so I'm excited to kind of see how and we see Young Justice starting to form. Yeah. So we know we're getting Ironheart. We have Kate Bishop right now. So we've seen like characters from Young Justice coming in. And then I'm not going to spoil Eternals because people that I actually love haven't seen it, even though I want to spoil it for them too. Um, you are one of them, and so we see in Eternals like how all of this is like starting to open up as well for the multiverse, and
Mhm.
so like watching and and so like it's different. So when we first got the MCU, we got Iron Man. Iron
Right.
Man kind of opened the door. It was very easy because Iron Man was great. I don't think they had this plan that they had, like eventually became like having. So we had Iron Man, and then they was like, "Oh, great, let's see what else we can do with this." And so I think because we had like the big Marvel characters already, I
Mhm.
think we get to see more of the, and we have a lot of TV shows and stuff too. Everything is all connected, so I'm really excited to see like how Shang-Chi and everybody kind of come together. But I think we're going to need everybody because I think if we're fighting the villain, I think we're fighting. They're going to need the dead people to come back to life too. Uh, but
Yeah.
I am really excited to see how they're going to use the multiverse. And since Alfredo's not here, I'll say it for him: we need the mutants. We need the mutants, Marvel. We need them. But um, She-Hulk's husband is mentioned in the movie. I mean, in the show. That's all I'm gonna say. He's mentioned in the show. So
She
he's
Hulk's
part.
who's She Hulk's husband? Is it Doc? Is it Doc Samson?
No. So if we're going by, so we see J. Jonah Jameson, right?
Right.
His son is married to She-Hulk in the
Oh, I
comics,
didn't.
and
Oh,
so he
wow.
becomes because he's an astronaut. And he
Right.
becomes like part mutant because of some accident that y'all need to read the comics. He becomes part mutant because of an accident that happens in space. So I'm like, we know we're getting She-Hulk. We see J. Jonah Jameson.
Uh huh.
All I'm saying is we might
Oh
have
man, I'm gonna
the
look into
starting
that.
of some mutants. Yes. So we may have the start of some mutants. Like I just for my brother's sake, can y'all please give us
Just
a
bring
mutant
the
or
mutants.
two? I mean we technically we do got I think we got Deadpool now. So
Well,
I
Scarlet
mean,
Witch technically is a mutant.
yeah, technically she's a mutant too, but I'm saying like the start of all the mutants starting to come in. So I will be yep, Man Wolf. Yep. So
Okay.
I'm excited to see how like all of this pops off. But yeah, he's married to She-Hulk, and we know we're getting She-Hulk. So I'm excited to see
Man, it's gonna be
how
dope.
they like use this to bring in which J. Jonah Jameson is always attacking Spider-Man. Sir, your son is Man Wolf, and that's all I have to say about that. But I give the movie a 4.5 out of 5 stars. It
Mhm.
was amazing to see everybody come together. It was amazing to see all the Spider-Mans. I mean, to see Tom Holland come from because he is the most age appropriate one, and to see him be, go from, just this regular kid who's, hanging out with his friends to who he is now. And so another thing, like he says in Infinity Wars, he says that so he's always had this kind of sense of morality. He says to Tony, he says, there's, how can there be a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man if there's no neighborhood? So he's
Mhm.
always kind of had like this sense of I have to protect and, to be there to kind of be this Spider-Man. So I get to see how he goes from like that, like this kid who's just like enamored with Tony Stark to becoming a hero in his own right and Infinity Wars to him becoming Spider-Man. Like
Mhm.
he's always been Spider-Man, but to me now he's actually Spider-Man, and not just a version of Spider-Man. I would say
Right.
he's actually Spider-Man at this point. So I'll give it 4.5 stars. It's just I think it was really greatly paced. The visuals was amazing to see how like Doctor because again I love him. Like nanotechnology, like
Oh,
you
that
guys
was
are way
dope.
ahead of us. So like them, saying
When
hey
he
this
paired it, that was
yeah, oh,
awesome.
that was
He did like the
funny.
Bluetooth pairing and just took it
Yeah.
back.
And Doc Ock was like, what's going on? And then see how like Tobey Spider-Man actually had web fluid inside of him and the other ones didn't.
Yeah.
Like so them like calling all that out and giving a shout out to Miles to acknowledge that he too is a Spider-Man. Like
Mhm.
I really enjoyed all of that. And I love the comics. So to see so many references to the comics, it just it's so amazing to me. And I'm actually watching Venom today. Hopefully, I'm not disappointed. But I'm actually watching the second one. Yeah, I know
Oh,
Jordan, how you feel about it.
just be careful of the spaghetti monster. That's all I gotta say. All right, Nate. final thoughts. Where's the MCU headed? What should people take away from this film, man?
Okay, so I want to go over some questions I have just through from the film. Because I don't. So I'm not a huge reader of the Marvel source material. So I can't really geek out the way Michelle does. With, oh, this is gonna happen. That's gonna happen. I don't really know. Like everything I know is mostly from the cartoons from the '90s. But
that's a good reference point. I think. I mean, they were pretty faithful.
Yeah. I think, in fact, I feel like a lot of, because like Spider-Man and X-Men, kind of the movies, the franchises, started a little bit after those cartoons. So I feel like a lot of influence came from those. And you know what? I was like looking at some of those old cartoons because they're on Disney Plus. I forgot how serialized X-Men was. I kind of remember Spider-Man was serialized, but it's amazing that they actually did that with those old animated series, and they were they are sort of an animated universe. They were already doing that way back then for the '90s stuff. You didn't see that in the 2000s. So we come from a good generation, I think, but of cartoons. But so a couple things. Daredevil. I'm wondering if this is the same Daredevil in continuity wise from Netflix, or is it an alternate timeline version? Just because there was somebody different overseeing. There was a different Kevin Feige overseeing the different television series way back when, right? So in my mind, like I kind of hope. I feel like you can, because I like the Daredevil from Netflix. But I also feel like because they did their own thing, it would be kind of nice if they could just say it's obviously it's the same. He looks the same because it's a multiverse, it's an alternate version, it's a variant or whatever you want to call it. I don't think they need to connect it, but I'm curious. And since I guess we're doing Hawkeye spoilers too, we know that Kingpin is back as Vincent D'Onofrio. I think is would you say his name?
Vincent D'Onofrio. Yeah.
So that's So it's awesome that they're both back because they were perfect in those roles. I'm curious, are they the same or are they different? Maybe they have similar backstories, kind of like how they tried to when Brandon Routh took over Superman in Superman Returns. It's supposed to be like a pseudo sequel to Superman 1 and 2, but not quite because it's modern day. So I'm wondering if they're going to do something similar where it's like, okay, some stuff maybe similar to what happened in the Daredevil Netflix cartoons or the Netflix series. Whether or not it's the same or not, that'll be interesting to see if they confirm that or if they just kind of don't answer that. But that's one question I have. I'm kind of wondering about Doctor Strange. One thing is, you guys mentioned this in your spoiler or not in your trailer reaction, which I waited to watch yesterday because I did not want any kind of spoilers at all.
I was super general.
Trailers are spoilers. Yeah. But the trailer reaction that you guys did, I don't know how many months ago that was, but you guys, one thing you mentioned was that his hair looked different, which is what I noticed too. Like his hair looks different, right? And I think you guys were kind of speculating whether or not that was actually Doctor Strange or not, which it feels like it is.
All credit due. Alfredo was the first one to point that out. Alfredo said there's something up with that dude. Yeah,
and Alfred
is our Doctor Strange.
It is, yeah. And Alfredo also pointed out too from the trailer, which this is what I was actually thinking the same thing when I was watching it. Was why is he doing this spell for Peter? That actually bothered me that he was being so irresponsible. It didn't feel quite right because he's doing. So Peter's like, "Can you do this for me?" And he's like, "Okay, well, it's nice knowing you, Spider-Man." And he's like, "What?" And he starts doing the spell. He's like, "Stop changing the spell." And I'm like, I feel like he would be smarter than this than just to not explain what the spell is, because he already learned from the first movie. You give the warnings, right? Like there's consequences to magic. So why are you doing the spell without giving any kind of consequences to him and not telling him that everyone's just going to forget him, and then starting the spell and then so that.
But you see how they changed it right in the film, because Wong told him not to do it in the trailer, and in the movie he didn't say not to do it. He said, "I just don't want any part of it," and just left.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. I was wondering. I think I did notice that. I was wondering what that's all about.
Right.
But Yeah, so that didn't feel right to me. His hair also looked weird. And when he came back, his hair looked better, right? Like when he so I was kind of, after I watched your reactions, I was like, wait. But it seemed like it was the same because he knew what was going on. There was part of me that was like, wait, is that the actual Doctor Strange coming in? And then that the Doctor Strange we saw in the beginning was not Doctor Strange, but it's like he knew what was going on. He didn't. It's not like he didn't know what that box was and everything.
Right.
So I don't know. That's kind of confusing to me. Like, why does his hair look different, and why was he so irresponsible? In my mind, I'm just thinking, oh, they didn't. It's somebody else that's writing the character, so it worked for their plot. Maybe that's all it is. It doesn't feel right to me though. I'm still kind of wondering, like, if they're going to explain that somehow, because I don't know. Kevin Feige is doing. Yeah. Okay.
Here's the thing, like because we could go back and look at different instances where Doctor Strange didn't behave like here's the biggest one. Remember when he was talking to Tony earlier in the Avengers? He said, "Listen, I don't care what happens. I'm protecting the Soul Stone. I'm not just going to listen. That's one thing. If you don't do this, I'm protecting this Soul Stone." But then right when Tony is about to die, he's like, I'll give it to you. So they could probably write. Now, I'm not saying this is what's gonna happen.
It's because he knew Tony needed to snap in order to save everybody. That's why he gave it up for Tony.
Right. That's I know that. Right. But what if they do write that because we have this evil Sorcerer Supreme? Are they going to try to backtrack on some things just to bring it into the story, or are they just going to go and continue with the new? Because I think in Spider-Man No Way Home, that was Doctor Strange the whole time, just our Doctor Strange. I don't think there was nothing that would, to me, give it away other than the fact that he did this spell. But the fact that Wong was okay with it, like had Wong remained, no, don't do it, and then he did it, was okay, cool. You know, he disobeyed the Sorcerer Supreme. I could see where they could write in, okay, this was the doppelganger. But the fact that they switched it up in the film and Wong was like, okay, fine, but I just don't want any part of it, that tells me, okay, that's the original Doctor Strange. So it could be, who knows? I'm actually looking forward to it, to see what they're going to do, because that trailer for Doctor Strange, now, again, if you watch the What If series, here's what I'm hoping, because I said it to you guys in the chat when I watched the What If, I said, this is the best villain in the MCU, is the combination of Vision with Ultron that happened in the MCU. I'm wondering if they're going to go in that direction. I'm hoping they're probably not, because we still got a lot of buildup that they have to do with Kang. But if that Ultron comes back, that was, to me, my favorite Ultron. I hated the Ultron in Age of Ultron, not because of the actor, because the actor did a good job. He had a great voice for it. But the fact that I like the Ultron in the comic where his face is not moving. It's just a big open mouth that glows, and he's just crazy. And so I'm hoping that the Ultron that they fight with the Infinity Gauntlet, they may bring it back, they may not. But hopefully he gets so powerful that the whole MCU has to fight this empowered Ultron. I don't know. I don't know if that's going to be, they're probably not going to repeat that just because it might be repetitive. But I don't know. They went with this Doctor Strange, and I'm ready for it. I don't know. What do you guys think?
So it is our Doctor Strange. I think the thing is, because remember after he started doing the spell, and he was like, you haven't even tried to talk to them to see if they'll even let you into school. So I think his main reasoning was because they fought in, they're Avengers together, and they fought together. And because remember, he was like, even I'll forget you. And you can kind of like tell like the sadness that he had. So I think he has like, because Peter is so young, I think everybody, he's an Avenger and all this other stuff. I think sometimes it get lost on everybody how young he is. Mm-hmm. And I think Doctor Strange has like a small, like even like Tony did. I think they have like a small, we have to kind of protect Peter situation going on. And so I think it was more of the fact that he wanted to protect Peter as opposed to him being irresponsible with doing the spell. I think Peter kept changing it was the part that kind of messed it up.
That was hilarious too.
Yeah,
you have to keep on resetting
and
it.
He kept trying to fix it for Peter, so Peter could have what he wanted. So I think it was more of him trying to kind of give Peter what he wanted, because Peter did sacrifice a lot during Infinity War and Endgame, and he recognized that. So even at the end when he was like, "Call me Steven," like you can still see. But even then he was like, "Sir," he said, "Don't call me sir." and he calls him Steven. He's like, that feels a bit strange. Um, but I think that kind of gives us an inkling of why Doctor Strange would make that decision to do that, to cast that spell for him because of his feelings for Peter. Not necessarily that he was being irresponsible, because one of my favorite quotes from a book is make love a verb and not a feeling. And I think sometimes when we make love verbs and not feelings, we do things that may not always necessarily be the best decisions, but we do it because we want to make love a verb and not a feeling. And I think it probably had more to do with that than it did him being the logical Doctor Strange that we're used to.
Right. All right, Nate, go back to your thing. So
yeah. So no, that's interesting. I mean, yeah, that's there's some ways to explain it. I just feel like they didn't even really. I'm just curious because they didn't really explain. I feel like if they had a purpose, they would they should have explained it. But it's interesting what you brought up, SOC, about the way he was acting in Endgame, where it's like he's giving up the stone, but it's because there was a purpose, that Tony had a purpose. So he was acting kind of strange, right? So maybe he was acting strange in the same way that because Tony has a purpose in this way because Sony has a purpose. But yeah, so that's one thing I was wondering about, just why Doctor Strange was acting strange, and why his hair changed. Oh, that rhymed.
Oh, you're the man, dude. You're the man.
But didn't his hair was different though when he escaped, right? The mirror dimension, right? His hair was like normal again.
He changed it. He probably did this right before. He was like, I got to.
Yeah, he was sweating in the mirror dimension. He was tired. Yeah. That's why his hair was different. He didn't have time to do it, and that's what happened.
I think that mirror dimension, that fight, the way he caught Doctor Strange, is one of the things that I loved about the way that happened. Was they showed Peter Parker's genius. His intelligence. I think they don't highlight that as much as they probably should. But the fact that he was like, wait a minute, I recognize this. And he did it and he caught him. And I was like, that was awesome. Just caught him in the web like that. That was a really dope scene. Really dope scene. So what's your final rating?
Okay. One more thing. All right,
go for it.
I'm still wondering what they're going to do with the franchise, because I think we all, at least I think SOC and I both thought that at the end Spider-Man was going to go into like a Sony parallel universe or something. That's No Way Home, right? That just seems like what it was. And so the fact that he remained, but no one remembered him, I see how it cleans things up for them to tell stories. Though people still know who Spider-Man is, right? I think they just don't. Nobody knows who Peter Parker is, right?
Right.
So that's going to be interesting. But I'm curious to see how they make that work. I think they had announced that there was going to be a 4, 5, and 6 Spider-Man for Tom Holland, and then I think that was backtracked. I'm not sure. I think that's what I heard. So I don't know.
It's still he's supposed to be the next trilogy is going to be him.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then now I'm wondering, if Sony's going to do that, are they going to try to make that part of the MCU, but kind of more in a neighborhood thing? No. So
here's what I think is going to happen, right?
Okay.
And the only reason I think this, because at first I was like, okay, Tom Holland's going over to the Sonyverse. He's going to spend some time over there because I thought he was going to get zapped in through the multiverse. And he was just going to get stuck there. Yeah. No Way Home, bam, No Way Home. But now that I'm looking at it, I think he's in the MCU. But what I'm thinking is that the other Spider-Men are going to be dealing with the Sonyverse. Like, and this is why I think that. Now, I could be completely wrong. I'm not saying I know for sure. But here's something that's making me think this way. In the Morbius trailer, if you look in the background while he's walking, which Peter Parker's back there? And on the poster called Murderer, it's not Tom Holland. If you look at the poster where Morbius is walking in the trailer and you look in the background, it says Murderer right over a Spider-Man. It's the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man. That outfit with the 3-dimensional spiders, that's on him. So I'm thinking maybe there's a connection here where they're probably going to involve Tobey with that Morbius, or is Morbius just in like a crazy dimension where Tobey is the Spider-Man? I don't know, because
that's
now,
interesting, yeah.
And could the Murderer, now I'm gonna get crazy, could the whole Murderer issue be not what happened with Tom Holland and Mephisto, but could it be the murder of what happened with him and Norman Osborn and the Green Goblin? Because remember, Tobey was accused of killing the Green Goblin by Harry. Harry wanted to kill Spider-Man for that reason. And so he considers him to be a murderer. Is that murderer for that reason, for the Green Goblin? And because I'm thinking, at first I thought, oh, it's of course, Tom Holland was accused for killing Mephisto, but that doesn't make any sense why he would in the trailer be wearing the alternate Spider-Man outfit that Tobey Maguire wears in the Morbius trailer. So I don't know if we're not going to see Tom Holland for a while, but we'll see the other ones in the other one maybe mentioned at least to some degree, because Morbius has not met anybody except for we're assuming that he may meet Venom, because he says in the trailer, in the Morbius trailer, he goes, "I am Venom." He goes, "I'm just kidding." And so
yeah, Venom, that was funny.
Venom exists in that world then if he makes that reference. So how does this Peter I don't know what they're going to do, because that
I think Sony's reclaiming their time. I think Sony's reclaiming their time, because from what I read is that they haven't made a deal with Marvel for the new Spider-Man movies. So with them not making a deal with Marvel for the new Spider-Man movies, I don't think he's going to be in the MCU. I think he's going to be standalone again, like the original Spider-Man, where because Sony still own all these Spider-Mans. They own Morbius, they own Venom. So anything dealing with Spider-Man, Sony owns. So Sony, I think they're trying to kind of ride the wave of the popularity of Spider-Man being in the MCU. Because from what I hear, they don't have, I think the MCU is going to reference Spider-Man, but I don't know if they're going to actually have him in the MCU anymore. Like, not even as like a Avenger, a Marvel, anything. So that's going to be interesting to see how that works.
Okay, so this is the picture I'm talking about right here. You see that in the background? That's Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man. Huh. That's not Tom Holland.
That is Tobey's. That's actually a good call out.
And it's not even at first, because you could also think, well, what if it's Tom Holland's new suit? That the Tom Holland is super light blue compared to that. So this is the Tobey outfit. So I'm wondering, how in the world are they going to tie that? Because he's called a murderer here. Everybody assumed it was the Tom Holland murder, but when you look at it, that's Tobey's outfit. So is he going to make is Tobey, because he didn't die in No Way Home, and he disappeared. What if they went back to maybe they didn't go, because remember, there's disruptions. There's something wrong with the multiverse. Who said they went back to their original state? Like, what if they go back to an alternate reality? Like, I don't know. The chat. What do you guys think in the chat? Like, am I crazy, or am I seeing something here? And then Michelle's like, yeah, you crazy. Benjamin said Venom is what changed things. It made a fortune without being in the MCU. We'll see where they go. Maybe bringing back Andrew Garfield or Tobey Maguire. I'm thinking they're going to bring them back to some degree, at least to deal with these Sony issues, because you got to think about it. Also, not only in that trailer do they show that Spider-Man, but in that trailer, they also show the Vulture from Tom Holland's universe. So what is Vulture doing in Morbius with that weird spot?
And Vulture's also a Sinister Six too.
Exactly. Multiverse of madness. Something went wrong when they supposedly sealed up. Something went wrong and everybody didn't go back to their own universe. Or maybe they're in a universe that's kind of like conflicted, where it has two universes in one. And maybe that's what makes sense with the Morbius Spider-Man. I don't know. I'm speculating like crazy. I don't know. Did you guys see this? Or do?
And
what do
plus,
you think?
Blade is in the MCU, so you might be onto something.
You got to have Blade fight Morbius. I mean,
you
the
have
ultimate vampire against
ultimate vampire. And we know killer. We got Blade. Yeah, we know we have Blade.
Man, this is
for people who didn't see Eternals. We got Blade.
Yeah, I saw that, so that's not a spoiler for me. I saw that thing. So yeah, when you heard the voice, I'm like, oh
I'm still so confused though, because
You're supposed to be, I think.
if Tom Holland is going to be in the next 3 trilogies, isn't that what you guys are saying, that he's going to be in the next?
He's supposed to, like, okay, so that's
so is it going to be this Spider-Man though? Is it going to be this Tom Holland, or is it going to be
They
a
said
parallel?
Tom Holland signed the deal. They say Tom Holland signed the deal for 3 more Sony movies. For
So
Sony, and here's the thing: they made sure to say Sony movies, which makes me think that. So I don't know if they're going to ink another deal with Blade and Morbius. Because Blade has to fight Morbius.
They've already made the deal that Sony and Marvel are working together. I even saw the head of Sony CEO yesterday. I was watching an interview, the red carpet for No Way Home. He's like, I can't say anything particular, but this relationship is working really well, and we're going to bring you, because he said Kevin Feige and what's the lady's name? Anyway, so Kevin Feige and that lady came up to him and they said, okay, here's the plan that we have. And he said, you guys are wild, but if it works, let's go for it. You know what I mean? So they have something crazy in mind. And I'm thinking that this multiverse of madness is going to be that it wasn't to me, when they went back and everything went seemingly back to normal, it wasn't normal. Something's wrong, because otherwise Doctor Strange wouldn't be looking for help from Wanda.
And evil Doctor Strange has made an appearance.
And exactly.
I can't wait to see evil Doctor Strange. I love regular Doctor Strange. I'm going to really love evil Doctor Strange.
Yeah. Amy Pascal. Thanks, Leonard. Yeah.
Yeah, Amy Pascal. My original thought was that, okay, he's still in the same universe. So I'm thinking, okay, the next, maybe they're going to focus on like friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, so it's not going to affect the wider MCU as much, because they're going to focus on, I don't know, Queens or whatever. Right. That was my thought. But then when the mid-credit scene with Venom going back to his universe, that threw me off, because I was like, okay, everything's going to be in the same universe. And I'm like, okay, so then they're sending him back, just leaving a bit of Venom behind. And then so then I'm like, okay, so that means Venom and Morbius are in a different universe from the MCU, but Peter is still in the MCU universe at the end. So then it's like, are they just going to have him? Maybe he's going to be there. He's in the background.
Their own
but then
Peter.
So there's maybe a separate Peter. So the Peter that we see in the Sony films is just going to be a parallel Tom Holland version of Peter, or maybe
Tobey.
What happens? Or Tobey. So now that's the other thing. I was just like, I think I might have thought that too. I was like, well, are they gonna bring back the other? Which would be awesome if they did that somehow. Yeah. If they continued on from this from No Way Home, and then you give them a further, like, a sequel for their character, that would be interesting.
But here's the thing. Here's why I believe if we're gonna get alternate Spider-Mans, is because Kevin Feige himself said Spider-Man is the only character that can cross universes. That's what he said. That was his quote. You can find that quote. So I think, like, my immediate thought, because we kind of talked about it a little bit, was the fact that Tom Holland was going to go over there and then he was going to come to the MCU at some point, come back. But maybe when he said Peter Parker and Spider-Man, he's not talking about Tom Holland. He's talking about the character in general is the only one that can cross multiple universes.
Miles has been confirmed. Miles is now confirmed.
Miles is coming. Miles already exists in the MCU. If you watch, because if you watch, what is it, Homecoming, and he catches dude at the trunk, he says, I have a nephew, and this is Uncle Aaron. He says, I have a nephew, and you need to keep this neighborhood safe for him, or something like that, to that effect. So Miles Morales exists in the MCU, but it's how they're going to bring him in that's going to be the question. And because I'm thinking what's going to happen is the next 3 Spider-Man with Tom Holland is he's going to eventually become the leader of the Avengers, and this is going to be the last Tom Holland that we see. And then after Tom Holland serves his sentence as Spider-Man, in a sense, right? It's going to be now Miles Morales is going to be the Spider-Man for the MCU, because we got enough of Peter Parker. Now we got Miles Morales. And then again, it's the Spider-Verse. Are we going to see a live version of that? And this is what it's set up for. I don't know.
This is why we got to keep T'Challa. This is why we have to keep T'Challa, even though I don't want to recast T'Challa.
I think
because of this.
Here's the thing. I think his character should be recast, not because it makes perfect sense for the story, but because I think the actor, Chadwick Boseman, wanted the character to continue. He wasn't selfish with the character saying, "Oh, it only should be me." he wanted it to continue because of what it meant. And so I think recasting him is a good idea, but with all this multiverse stuff going on, I think they're gonna just bring in an alternate version of Black Panther from another universe and bring him in and say, okay, now he's gonna serve in this multiverse, which then opens up a storyline for him and Storm to be together versus the Chadwick Boseman. Because I would love to see Storm show up in Wakanda Forever, like somehow, like introduce her somewhere. Because that storyline where her and him as the rulers of Wakanda was a dope storyline. I think they should do it. Dope
storyline. And they have a son, and their son is pretty dope too.
Yeah. And so we'll see. So what, Nate? What's your rating?
So okay, my rating. I think I was thinking about it like throughout the whole movie, because again, it wasn't. I wanted it to be a 5 out of 5.
I was haunting your experience. He's like, I know he's going to ask me.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, but I was like, I wanted it to be a 5 out of 5, and I think in some ways, just because I almost want to give it a 5 out of 5, just because they pulled off the the greatest like fan service movie and made it good. But so I think like A for effort, I guess. But I feel like they still could have tweaked it a little bit, where you have the same basic story, but you tweak the scripts a little bit, maybe move things around or something, where the moments might hit a little bit better, and little things just like saying thank you, Peter, and all that kind of stuff, right? Like so. I feel like if they had more time, maybe you had someone who could, a producer or something who could have made like given like good creative notes and said maybe it would be better if we did this. I think they could have still kept what they were doing and made it a 5. But I'd say probably 4.75. It's still an amazing movie that they were able to pull off all of that. I'm still like, it still blows my mind that we're in this place, because I mean, it wasn't so long ago that the idea of a cinematic universe was just like a pipe dream. Right. The whole idea of, because I think at one point it was just like thinking, oh, it'd be nice to have like Christian Bale and what's his name, the other, who's the current Superman,
Harry Cavill, I think is what his name.
Henry Cavill. Yeah, Henry Cavill. Like, oh, if they brought them together or something in a Justice League, that would be interesting. Things like that. Like back at that time, and so then to actually finally have a Marvel Cinematic Universe, and then as well as just like bring that and connect it to the Spider-Verse. And the fact that we know that Disney owns X-Men as well now too, so we know that's going to go somewhere. I mean, I know Fantastic Four has already been scheduled as well. So it just blows my mind that we actually got this movie. So I almost, the fact that they pulled it off and made it good, I almost want to give it a 5 for that. But just I feel like that's almost like giving a participation ribbon or trophy or something like it. So I give it a 4.7 out of 5. I think they could, if they had more time or taken a little bit more time with it, they could have made it perfect. I mean, nothing's perfect. Chris is right. Nothing's perfect, but for what it was, I think they could have made it just a little bit better, where it's just like, but they got pretty close. So, and I think you have a lot working against you with this type of film. And so, kudos to them for them what they've done. Kudos to Sony for working with Marvel, and for Kevin Feige for everything that he has done up until this point. He deserves a whole lot of credit for the cohesiveness of this, for just the MCU itself, and then being able to integrate all the Spider-Verse into that. You know what? The only thing that could like blow my mind more is if they could somehow have Hugh Jackman appear as Wolverine in some form. I think
he's going to show up in Multiverse of Madness. I
kind of feel in some way you have to. If he showed up in this movie, that would have made sense. But that would have been like the ultimate, because it's like you have the three different I guess franchises all into one. That would have been That would okay. That would I think that would top this if you can have MCU Spider, Sony Spider-Man verse and the X-Men verse somehow collide. That would be amazing. But yeah,
Here's the
go
thing,
on.
and I don't know if anybody else saw it, and this is just me. Maybe I didn't see it, and this is in the film. Remember when they show the whole multiverse snap and break, and they start showing these glowing characters, like the characters from the other multiverse. There's this one scene. I wish I could get a screenshot, but I didn't. I didn't take pictures of the film. But I saw Rhino, like the original old school Rhino, and I could be wrong. And so when the film comes out, or maybe I'll go watch it again, I just want to, when they showed like an old school, because they showed this really big character and he turned his head to the side and he had the big horn. And I'm like, that looks like the old school comic book, right? Not the Paul Giamatti Rhino. I'm talking about like the old school comic Rhino. That's what I think. Okay, so for me, my rating for the film, number 1, I give it 5 out of 5. And here's why. It's probably the way I think about the film. Is because I see this film as the end game of all the Spider-Man films. That's what I see it as. And so the same way we got Endgame because it was all the Marvel films finally coming to a big head and everything, I think this was the Spider-Man Endgame. And now Peter Parker begins as the original Spider-Man. So for me, I think the way they tied all of the stories together, the way the Peter Parkers interacted, the pacing of the film, the score, because if you pay attention to the score, they mixed some of the old themes with the new themes, and that was really cool. So they did an excellent job at that. Again, the pacing, the fact that Aunt May died, I think she died the right way for the end of her character. It made perfect sense because again, now Peter is on his own completely. So that I think that works for his character. Again, they opened up, and the way they ended the film, of course, him with the old school outfit was definitely dope. The what you call it, the mid credits and those scenes were really cool. I loved the Doctor Strange trailer at the end. I think that was the best time to show the Doctor Strange trailer because everybody's waiting for like, come on, Doctor Strange 2, but you could see that they had a plan and that this plan is going to work. And I was talking a little bit before, we've talked about it before, was when I first saw the end of Endgame, I'm like, that's it. I don't think they're really going to top it. Like, I don't think that they are doing it. Like, they are bringing this thing, and this has so much steam and so much, because of at first I thought the multiverse was just going to explain everything away and just kind of be like a save all. But I think it's so much more than that. When we have, and I can't wait for the Loki series. I can't wait to see how they're going to bring Kang in, because he's not going to be the goofy Kang we saw at Loki. He's going to be a villain. Like, he's going to be that dude. So, and if you've watched the film, The Harder They Fall, really dope film, the way it was filmed. The guy who plays Kang is in that film, and his acting chops is good. Like, he has some range. So I'm looking forward to see what he's going to bring to Kang. Let me see. He said, Jimmy Yu said, this fan service was better than Endgame. I don't know. It depends. It depends, because it was really good. It was really good. But of course, when you think about scenes like when Captain America grabs the hammer, when they come out of the portals on your left and they all come out, it was dope. Now, I like this because you got all the Peter Parkers, I think what makes this fan service better was all the hype building up to this film. Because I think without that hype, it wouldn't have made as much money. But everybody had these theories and all these things, these different universes coming in. The multiverse had so much behind it that Endgame it had, but I don't think to this level. And so I think this is why it broke so many records. But yeah, I agree. I think to some extent the fan service was really dope in this one as compared to Endgame. He said, Miles Morales says the MCU can go for it could go forever. If they do it right, it can go forever. It's too many stories and storylines.
As long as Kevin Feige's around.
Yeah. I dread the day that he's not around, because it's going to be scary. He needs to.
You know what I'm afraid of is that it comes out that he's some kind of like creep or something, and they're like, they have to get rid of him. And I'm just like, why did you? Come on, dude. But
yeah, hopefully not. So yeah, I give it 5 stars. So everybody in the chat, a lot of people giving it like what you guys gave it, 4.75, 4.9, so forth and so on. I get it. There's no perfect film, but to me, this was the perfect Spider-Man film because it's the end game to all the Spider-Man movies. And that's how I view it. Maybe because I view it that way, that's probably why I gave it a 5 out of 5. Okay, we've been on here for 2.5 hours. We always go long. Any final thoughts before we get off?
Since you like scores, I will say I do enjoy how you know which Marvel character you're about to get because their music comes on
Oh yeah.
to hint at who it's going to be in the scene. So I do like how each character have like their own kind of like theme music. And I'm also very excited to see where this goes. Sony, Marvel, Disney. If any of y'all want to sponsor us on Real Reviews, we will be more than glad to be sponsored. Nate's pretty face can be at all of your, opening
Make a
nights and all that good
t-shirt.
stuff.
If you guys, let's get, okay, here's this. If you guys get this video to 1,000 views, okay? If we can get this video to 1,000 views, I'll put Nate's face on a t-shirt.
Yeah. So all I'm saying, if y'all want to
Right, Nate? You're
sponsor
okay
us,
with that, right, Nate?
yeah,
been
Nate's
done
pretty
before,
face
so.
can be.
Oh,
Yeah,
well,
yeah. Nate's pretty face can be at your opening. At your movie reviews. Jordan, the voice can do a voiceover in Spider-Verse
There
and
you
make
go.
him canon in the MCU. I'm just
Yeah,
saying you have options.
make
BK,
SOC canon in the MCU
yeah,
or Star Wars.
yeah, Star
In
Wars,
some way,
either one.
I could be a
Something.
Mandalorian. I could be an alien
I
that
think
talks for a second.
Mandalorian would be better. Make him we could call it Manda Bros. Make him a Manda Bro. Look,
Mandabro.
BK loves the mutants. Maybe somehow, make him over into a mutant as a behind the scenes kind of thing. All I'm saying is, y'all sponsor us, the opportunities are endless. I do my own cosplay already. All I'm saying is, we're phoning it in for you. We make it easy for you already. Just go ahead and sponsor us. That's all I got for you.
There you go. And there's links in the description if you guys want to support this channel, make it grow, help us with advertising and all that stuff. Buy t-shirts and hoodies, and just support us. That'd be great. And if that's not the case, you guys are like, just hit the like button and leave a comment after the live stream. That helps us too. So make sure you guys do that. So with that said, we have finally arrived at the end. So until next time, thank you guys for hooking up with us here in mid-afternoon for the Spider-Man No Way Home, and leave your comments on what movies you want us to review next. Until next time, God bless, take care, and we will see you at the movies. Peace.